across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, good evening and welcome to the Political Asylum right here on Talk all the way to 10 o'clock. I'll be your host, Kevin O'Sullivan. Stand by for 3 compelling hours of breaking news, challenging views and topical debate. Get on the show, get on the phone and call me on 0344 499 1000, or you can WhatsApp voice note me on the same number, and I promise to play your message out. It is Monday, October the 6th. Here's what's coming up. Tomorrow, October the 7th, is the second anniversary of the worst massacre of Jews since the Holocaust. And how is Britain marking this grim 2-year milestone? With an ongoing volcanic eruption of anti-Semitism all across this increasingly twisted nation, thousands and thousands of pro-Palestine derangement syndrome sufferers disguising their Jew hatred under the pretense of weeping for the people of Gaza. That veteran enabler of anti-Semitism, that good friend of Hamas's rapists and murderers, Jeremy Corbyn, joining forces with his demented sidekick, Zara Sultana, to call for the mother of all pro-Palestine marches this coming Saturday. Tomorrow, on the very date that is burned into history as the day when Hamas's thugs slaughtered 1,200 innocent Jews, universities are set to stage demonstrations of support for the free Palestinian cause in whose name the atrocity unfolded. Liverpool University is hosting a Palestine Bake event, a celebration of Palestine cuisine, enough to make any decent person feel sick. This past Saturday, ignoring the sensitivities of Jewish people mourning their dead, massive marches snaked through the streets of London, pro-Hamas, from the river to the sea, and even swastika banners were everywhere. How disgusting is that? 0344 499 1000. The death of 2 Jews in that murderous synagogue attack by a maniac Muslim terrorist only seems to have rallied Britain's anti-Israel fanatics to their rancid obsession. What is happening to this once tolerant country? 0344 499 1000. In other news, multimillionaire champagne socialist Gary Neville accuses, and I quote, angry middle-aged white men of causing division by putting up Union Jacks and St George's Cross flags. Isn't that racist, what he's saying? To pick out white men? That's racist, isn't it? Because it's not just white men, is it, for God's sake? And the former England international revealed that at one of his own development sites, he furiously ripped down a Union Jack flying proud. Lineker and now Neville. What is it with these football relics called Gary? Furious patriots are calling for a boycott of Sky Sports, for which Neville earns £1.1 million a year as a soccer pundit. Why does he think, as I say, that only white men are keen on our national flags? To say that is racist, is it not? 0344 499 1000. Also tonight, an exclusive from Talk's brilliant international editor Isabel Oakeshott, who bravely went to Libya to find out what they're doing to try to stop the flow of hundreds of thousands of migrants to the Mediterranean and onwards north to Italy, France, Calais, and of course the final destination, the promised land of asylum seeker heaven, Britain. Meanwhile, late in life, Kemi Badenoch's gone all reform at the Tory conference, vowing to set up an American ICE-style squad to deport 750,000 illegal migrants at the rate of 150,000 a year. And at long last, the ailing Conservative leader has finally worked out that Britain needs to leave the ECHR. Took her time, didn't she? Welcome to the party, Kemi. Better late than never. Is Ms Badenoch the captain of the political Titanic. 03444991000. Plus, I'll take a look at the newish Green Party leader, David Paulden, who calls himself Zach Polensky, presumably because he thinks that makes him more interesting. This is a guy who used to earn a living conning women that he could enlarge their breasts through the power of hypnotism. Would you buy a used left-wing political agenda from him? 03444991000. Meanwhile, his deputy, Mohsin Ali, shouted Allahu Akbar when he was elected to Leeds Council and has been embroiled in an anti-Semitism row after calling a Jewish Leeds University chaplain a creep for returning to Israel after October the 7th to, in Ali's words, kill children. In fact, Israeli citizen Rabbi Zechariah Deutsch headed back to his home country to fulfill his duties as a reserve IDF soldier. As caricature lefty Zach madly rants on about Nigel Farage being a fascist who wants to turn Britain into a one-party state, what is happening to the Green Party? Has it been hijacked by a communist lunatic? 03444991000. Also tonight, why does Labour backbencher Angela Rayner enjoy the privilege of a ministerial BMW? I don't care if the disgraced former Deputy PM lets her boyfriend use it. I want to know why taxpayers are funding a luxury car for a run-of-the-mill backbench MP. Don't you? 03444991000. And finally, Kinsey Schofield on Meghan in Paris. What was that all about? All that and so much more. So don't go anywhere. Stick with me right here, right now on Talk, the home of free speech and common sense. Let's spend Monday night together. And without further ado, let's go straight over to my first guest. She's got a brilliant exclusive lined up for us in just a little while on her trip to Libya, where there are more than 800,000 migrants milling around. Many of whom, most of whom, want to get to the northern coast, across the Mediterranean, to Italy, into France, and then you know where they're heading. They're heading here. This is, in many ways, one of the major sources of our migrant crisis. So it's good to go to the source of the crisis. Isabel did just that. She'll tell us all about that in a minute, and we've got an amazing film of her trip. So stand by for that. So welcome to the show, Isabel.
Thank you, Kev. Well, what are we doing first tonight, then?
Well, first of all, I just want to talk about what happened this weekend and what is going to happen tomorrow, disgustingly, on the anniversary of October the 7th, the 2-year anniversary, and what is planned for this coming weekend. Jeremy Corbyn and his deranged... Jeremy Corbyn, as I said in my monologue, that old enabler of anti-Semitism, a man around whom the words Jew hate seem to circle constantly, and his deranged little sidekick, Zara Sultana, are calling for the mother of all pro-Palestine marches on Saturday. Tomorrow, on the actual day, the actual anniversary, universities all over the country are planning special events for pro-Palestine. You know, so in other words, they feel that this particular day tomorrow is the day to rise up in an explosion of anti-Israel hatred. I mean, it is repulsive. It's repulsive. These marches, these events on Saturday, 500 people arrested in London alone. You know, they'll say, no, it's about Palestine, it's about the children, it's about the suffering of the people of Gaza. You go to these events, you see swastikas. You see swastikas on banners. You see from the river to the sea, free, free Palestine. This is all a disguise. Everything that they say, oh, it's just about the children, we've got to save the people, the poor people of Gaza. We all fear for the people of Gaza. Of course, nobody celebrates what's going on in Gaza, but Israel have got just and right cause, in my view. A lot of us believe that. A lot of us still stand with Israel. These people at that demonstration on Saturday around the country, in Manchester of all places, these people who will celebrate tomorrow, who will celebrate on Saturday, they actually disguise their Jew hate under a cloak of caring for the people of Gaza, caring for the children. These are explosions. No, I'm not saying that everybody on these marches is like this, but a fair proportion of the people who attend these events, these protests, these pro-Palestine derangement syndrome protests, are anti-Semites. They're Jew haters. And Jew hatred, as we saw last week, is exploding in this country. And I find it extraordinary that the worse things get for Jewish people in this country, as in a terrorist attack on a synagogue last week, the more Jew hatred proliferates, erupts around Britain. What is going on here, Isabel?
Well, you said that they disguise their Jew hatred, and I don't think they're really very successful at that, are they? But what they also disguise is their own features. All the things that you've just said, I agree with, but I also think these people that keep turning out to spew their anger and hatred on our streets are also cowards. A very, very substantial proportion of them are at public protests but don't choose to show their faces. What are they hiding? Why are they masked up? Why do they cover their features either in rags or in completely ineffectual COVID masks? They cover their features because they're not brave enough and principled enough to show who they are and what they are arguing for. And I mean, my own view is that these marches have gone way too far, and they went way too far a very long time ago. And effectively, by doing these public protests on what should actually be a day of commemoration, of respect, of, actual compassion towards the community that is being and has been persecuted in this most monstrous way, they're actually trolling the victims. There are still hostages being held by Hamas. There are still bodies being held by Hamas. As yet, although we teeter on the brink of what sounds like it might be a real lasting breakthrough, there is no agreed solution or strategy. That hasn't been signed off by all the different organizations and parties and terror groups. And so tomorrow is this is a very special and extremely sensitive time now. And I can't believe, or maybe I can believe, but I'm very, very depressed that our authorities, the best they can do is sort of appeal to people not to turn out. I just think there are ways and means of just banning this now. It's gone way too far.
Guess what's happening at Liverpool University? As I say, campuses all over the country are planning to almost celebrate the 2-year anniversary of the massacre of the Jews, by hailing the pro-Palestine cause, which is just a smack in the face for every Jewish person in the world, but particularly the British Jewish community, particularly after what happened last Thursday, the attack in Manchester. But this is what's happening in Liverpool, for example. I mean, you can't... It's scarcely believable. So tomorrow, Tuesday, 7th of October, from 10 a.m. until 4 p.m. at Liverpool University, it's the Palestine Bake Sale. It's a celebration of Palestinian cuisine, and they put out a poster saying Palestine Bake Sale, like the sort of bake-off or something, and then it goes, time for dessert. Can you believe that? Can you believe the insensitivity of that?
I mean, the thing is, what is so depressing about all of this is it just seems to be the whole pro-Palestine, free Palestine, bake some muffins for Palestine, whatever it may be, just seems to have become a kind of proxy for left-wingers to be angry and, be exactly what they accuse the right of, which is divisive. And these people have... On balance, most of them have a very, very limited understanding of the very complex situation that they're so angry about. All they see it is in binary terms, Israel bad, Gaza victim. That's how they see it. And it doesn't really go much beyond that. And it has become, if you'd said to either of us 2 years ago, or rather just after that absolute horror 2 years ago, that this would become some kind of totemic issue in the UK that would actually create so much poison and toxicity and despoiling our streets and dividing communities. I just said, are you crazy?
Yeah.
You know, what has this got to do with the UK? Except insofar as the UK still has an important, albeit diminished, place on the world stage. This is not our fight. It is certainly for us to stand up for and to protect our Jewish community. But what is going on in that part of the Middle East or any other part of the Middle East is not actually our problem. Yeah. And these people are trying to make it our problem. And guys, as if we don't have enough of our own issues, but you're creating a whole other layer of issues by bringing this absolute nightmare fight to our own streets. And everyone's sick of it. I think everybody who is not on the Free Palestine march is just sick of them.
Yeah, we certainly are. I mean, students gathering tomorrow all across the country to lionise racism. That's what they're doing. Students have certainly changed since my day. And Michael Gove had a very powerful piece in the Daily Mail which makes the point. I want to preface this by saying the worse things seem to get for the poor Jewish people, like on October the 7th, the more our pro-Palestine friends seem to sort of double down on their hatred of Jews. Oh, yeah. 1,200 have gotten killed. Right, don't let that get in our way. Let's get out on the streets and protest against awful Israel and those awful Jews. Last Thursday, what happened? You know, the terrible attack, the terrorist attack by a Muslim maniac. By the way, our government still won't say. They keep telling us, it's big, who knew, that this was an attack on Jewish people just because they're Jews. Do you think there might come a time, Isabel, when Keir Starmer or Shabana Mahmood or Yvette Cooper or any of our cabinet crew might actually mention who carried out the attack? That it was a Muslim, that it was an Islamist terrorist? They haven't said that so far, and that is a scandal.
Well, it's only to be expected. I mean, I'm only surprised that we haven't been told that, you know, the perpetrator was a sort of sweet choir boy from Yorkshire or something. You know, I mean, it's just,
I think they usually come from Wales, actually.
A British, British choir, from a Welsh choir boy. That's what it was. I mean, you know, they basically have sort of learned a lesson and quickly admitted that this individual was of Syrian heritage. And, you know, I think actually...
Say it's a terrorist, say it's a Muslim, say it's a Muslim maniac like the rest of the nation. Stop protecting the Islamic community in this country just because you want their votes. I mean, we see them, don't they? Hey, Starmer, we see you, we know what you're doing, and it's a disgrace.
It is a disgrace, and these are not, we know they're not representative of ordinary moderate Muslims. These are extremists that other countries, including in the Middle East, by the way, would never have on their shores.
Yeah,
exactly. It's come one, come all in the UK. And look at how long it can take, actually, for the chickens to come home to roost. It is not the case that just because you import or you allow people to come in with very dubious backgrounds or traumatized from war and terror, whatever, that the consequences in terms of the brutality of terror attacks that may happen in a year or 2 years or 3 years. You can be paying the price as a country and a community 10, 15, 20 years on. That's what happened in the case of Axel Rudikabana. It was, you know, that was a generational thing almost. His parents came over many years ago, but they were that child was radicalized because of his heritage. And here we have it again, and we know a bit about the father and so on. I mean, this is, how many more warnings do we need to stop importing people called jihad?
Yeah, the father of jihad, al-Shami, Faraj al-Shami, of course, celebrating the wonder of the October the 7th attack on social media the day it happened. So I still think we have to ask some serious questions about the kind of family that jihad, of all names, was brought up in. I'm just going to leave it before we go. I'll just leave this hanging in the air. I think it speaks for itself. Very powerful piece by Michael Gove in Saturday's Daily Mail, and the headline speaks for itself. Think about this, folks. Michael Gove beautifully, actually, declared, "It is an iron law of history that when Jews feel unsafe, the candle of freedom is going out." Just remind you that our government is putting people in jail for tweets. Let's go to break, and next up we'll talk about Gary Neville. That next, stay tuned.
Citizenship. His father had called the October 7th attackers heroic in a public tweet, blatantly, openly celebrating one of the most horrific massacres, the worst since the Holocaust, of Jewish people. And here's the thing, we've imported this problem.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Poor champagne socialist, £1.1 million a year, Gary Neville, former Man United and England international footballer, driving home on Thursday night from a football match. He saw all these horrible Union Jacks and St George's flags, these horrible flags. Oh, so, it's awful, so divisive, he thought, so divisive. And he just kept thinking that we're all being turned against each other. He saw Union Jacks and St George's flags, and he said that it was only angry white middle-aged men who were putting these up. Angry white middle-aged men. I think that's probably racist, because it's certainly not just angry white men. But here is what he had to say. Bizarrely, he didn't post this on social media. He posted it on LinkedIn. Here he goes.
Driving home from Salford City last night. I was driving out to Salford City, going down a Littleton Road, seeing 60, probably 50 or 60 Union Jack flags. And I just kept thinking as I was driving home last night that we're all being turned on each other, and the division that's being created is absolutely disgusting. Mainly created by angry, middle-aged white men who know exactly what they're doing.
Well, before Isabel and I discuss that horror, I think it's a disgusting thing to say. How can you look at our national flag? Oh, it's so terrible. We're being divided. He went on. He also referenced, you know, the poor Jewish people of the Manchester community after the synagogue attack, as if somehow or other it made them feel othered. They're British. It's their flag too. That doesn't divide Britain from our Jewish community. They're all under the same flag, for God's sake. Here's Talk Sports' Simon Jordan, who didn't mince his words.
I think it's astonishing, in the wake of an Islamist terror attack, that he decides to have a go at middle-aged white men. Maybe the angry middle-aged white men are the ones that worked on minimum wage inside his hotel. I don't know. I think he's a champagne socialist and a coward. I think it's a dreadful thing to have said.
How is he a coward?
Well, I think the real issue is about radical Islamist extremism, and he doesn't have the balls to call it out for what it is, rather than suggest that people that are challenged in our country about what's happening, he's insulated from these things. He lives in a very rarefied world where his money and privilege has enabled him to live behind a gated environment, not have to worry about NHS appointments, not have to worry about people being attacked in the streets by immigrants that shouldn't be here in the first place. He doesn't have to worry about these things, and so he has the ability to be able to sit there and observe in such a way that insulates himself from it. And I think it's an appalling stance to have taken.
Well said, Simon Jordan. Isabel, I mean, your thoughts. It's disgraceful, isn't it?
I thought it was absolutely pathetic. It's just yet another privileged, out of touch lovey doing their little hashtag be kind thing. Except on this occasion, it's based on the fact that he's been so shocked to have seen a series of Union flags in his own country. I don't know, listening to it, now I've listened to it a few times. Initially, when I heard him talking about middle-aged or angry white men, I assumed he meant sort of white van man kind of thing, you know, the type of people that Labour's Emily Thornberry was always so snooty and disdainful of. But now I've listened to it again, and I wondered if actually what he meant was Nigel Farage. You know, when he said they know exactly what they're doing, you know, was he also aiming that comment on Reform's leaders? I don't know what he had in mind. I'm not going to try and get inside that weaselly, strange mindset of his that he finds our national flag so offensive. Can't he see actually that symbol is sort of an attempt to bring us together? In a sense, it's an attempt to say, let's just remind everybody here what this country is, which country it is. Look, there are parts of Britain where you wouldn't actually know it was the UK if it weren't for the fact that there's a few street names in English.
He goes on, as I say, he goes on to say all those, you know, this after, you know, on the same day they've had this appalling attack on Jewish people, as if Jewish people, British Jews, look at the Union Jack and go, nothing to do with me, that makes me feel othered. It's their flag too. We've got to stop treating British Jews as if they're somehow different from British people. They're not. They're British citizens. They've all lived here all their lives. That's the scandal. They respect our flag as much as the rest of us. So let's get beyond that. But he went on to say that, you know, he develops all these business ideas. So he's got building sites all over the shop. He went on to say that he visited one of his development sites where presumably the workmen and construction workers had patriotically put up a Union Jack flag, and he ripped that down.
Great. Marvellous. I mean, I mean, this is like the story we did a couple of weeks ago about the person or idiot that called 999. They were offended because they saw a Union Jack inside a fire station, and some idiots at the top end of the fire brigade decided that it had to therefore be taken down. What is wrong with people? Are they losing the plot at this point? You know, have they forgotten who we're even meant to be? You know,
Yeah.
actually, what we need is a reminder of our fundamental identity as British people living in Britain.
Yeah.
And if the flag becomes a source of offence and division, then we really properly have lost the plot. But I think we know has happened.
I know you almost want to say to some of these crazed left-wingers, you know, who do you hate most, or what do you hate most, Jews or the British flag? I mean, they've got such a strange mindset, anti-Semitic, hate our flag, hate everything about Britain. That is their creed, and Gary Neville is absolutely symptomatic of these Labour lovies. And my other question to you is, what is it, Isabel, about these old footballer relics called Gary, Lineker and now Neville? What is the matter with these guys? Why can't they stick to football?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe they're just trying to be relevant again or something like that. You know, whenever you start saying Gary, I'm always thinking it's Lineker, but now we've got another one to contend with. I don't know, but all of this, take it all together. Look, our country is really, really, really on a knife edge. You know,
Yes, it is.
I really feel that it's not going to be too long before the damage is so bad and the problems are so profound that it's going to be very, very difficult to reverse, and it's extraordinarily depressing.
A lot of patriots, angry patriots, are now, in terms of Neville, calling for a boycott of Sky Sports, from which he earns £1.1 million. As I'll say this, a very good soccer pundit. He's a very compelling soccer pundit, and he's entitled to his political views. It's not the same as Gary Lineker abusing his position while we pay his salary because it was the state broadcast of the BBC. Sky Sports is an independent private broadcaster, so it's up to them whether or not they put up with this outburst by Gary Neville. But they may feel the punch of a lot of sports fans boycotting Sky Sports, boycotting Sky Football because of what Neville said. People don't take kindly to that. As I say, I don't like calling for people to lose their jobs. Don't think it's relevant in this case. But if people boycott Sky Sports, they'll only have Gary Neville to blame. Let's go to break, and when we come back, it's your moment, Isabel. We're going to play Isabel's footage from Libya and tell the story of what she found out when she went to that benighted country, where, in fairness, they're doing their level best to stop this massive flow of migrants from Central Africa and the Middle East to the Mediterranean, across the Mediterranean, through Italy, up north, Calais, and onto the promised land, us. Talk about that next. Stay tuned.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Well, our brave international editor, Isabel Oakeshott, went to Libya last week for 4 days to take a look at what's going on there. This is a country, a benighted country, of 7.3 million people, in which there are 876,000 illegal migrants, all of whom are harbouring dreams of crossing the Mediterranean, heading north for the promised land, Britain. Vast numbers of these people are escaping the civil war in Sudan, the conflicts in Chad and Eritrea. 99% of Sudanese migrants who manage to get to Britain are granted asylum. So this is very relevant to us. Italy is giving Libya quite a lot of money for them to try to stop the boats leaving Libya. So this is Isabel's report from Libya. It is a Talk exclusive. Enjoy.
Libya has become a major transit route for refugees and migrants from sub-Saharan Africa, and many of them come through Libya dreaming of getting to the UK, particularly from Sudan, where there has been a civil war waging for the last 2 years. And those asylum seekers or economic migrants who make it from Sudan to the UK have a 99% chance of being given leave to remain. So I spent several hours talking to immigration chiefs here in Benghazi on the east side of Libya. The Libyan National Army has a very good grip on the immigration problem, albeit fighting against a huge crisis with limited resources. There is a very, very clear process of giving people proper health checks, the life-saving care that they need, and then working out where it is exactly that they've come from. Their message to the UK is that you are fueling this problem. You are effectively advertising a great new life for people from sub-Saharan Africa. Why are you surprised that they keep on coming? They actually said, you know, what do you think happens when a guy from Sudan comes up through Libya and makes his way all the way to the UK and gets put in a luxurious hotel and provided with everything?
Beans, hash browns, salad, eggs, tomatoes, lovely.
What do you think that guy is going to do? I tell you what he does. He rings his friends back in Sudan, messages them through social media and says, guess what, guys? You know, you wouldn't believe the new life I have here. How about you come too? And, you know, what they said is often that is recruiting new migrants who had never even thought of making this perilous journey. And make no mistake, it is a perilous journey. We see it from the end point. We see the Channel crossing as the dangerous bit. But actually where these journeys begin is in the hot desert. Many, many tens of kilometres have to be covered on foot by these migrants, and as many as 1 in 4 do not make it. That means bodies in the desert. The Libyan authorities are having to recover bodies in the desert. About the UK and how much awareness there is in this. So the message that they have to us in the UK is, please stop advertising your country as a great destination to go to, and please understand the scale of what we are dealing with here with very, very limited resources. Once again, you know, people come in from charities, from NGOs, they use warm words, and the authorities here told me the only thing that we ever get is maybe a few toothbrushes and some nappies for the babies.
Excellent report, Isabel. Really good. Now, when you were there, only just before then, in a period of 10 days, more than 100 people drowned when their hideous, overcrowded vessels sank at sea, heading out from Libya to Italy. And you just highlighted the tragedies in the desert. So this is a lethal issue. And in fairness to Libya, I mean, it's a troubled country, but they're receiving hundreds of millions of pounds from Italy to try and stop the flow, and they are doing their best. But the sheer scale of it, 876,000 migrants milling around Libya, all hoping to head north across the Mediterranean, is almost overwhelming, isn't it?
It's a huge problem that they're dealing with. And I want to start this just by making a confession, actually. Well, really two confessions. The first is that you kindly called me brave for going to Libya. And the truth is I got myself into quite a lather about it. You know, I was very, very anxious about going to Libya because it does have a reputation as being very, very dangerous. And I travelled there against Foreign Office advice, with all the implications of that. It means very difficult to get insurance and so on. Now, what I actually found when I got to the east side of Libya, Benghazi was somewhere that's remarkably stable and actually rather an exciting place. You know, very, very positive, lots of good things going on there. So that's confession number one. Libya is not a scary place on the east side where I was. It's under good management. Confession number two, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners will relate to this. When left-wingers, and it usually is left-wingers, talk about solving our migrant crisis upstream, when they start going on about how we've got to look at what happens in Africa, I've generally just zoned out at that. I've thought to myself, come on, guys, you know, we can't fix Africa. You know, you seriously saying this is a solution to throw money at Africa? That is ridiculous. We can't sort the civil war in Sudan. We can't sort out what's going on in Eritrea. But here's where I think I got some of that wrong. I still don't think we can do any of that. But I do think we can, at the very least, support and recognise what countries that are right on the front line before sub-Saharan Africans actually get across the ocean and get to Europe. We can support what those countries are doing to try to stop the boats or detain people at their own borders down there in the desert. And what has happened in Libya is it's become a massive transit route from countries all through sub-Saharan Africa trying to get to Europe. And of course, the dream is to get to the UK. So it is in our interest to help the Libyans, and particularly I'm going on about the East because that is the stable side of the country. The West is a bit of a basket case. I've not been there, so I can't attest to this, but it's said to be extremely, genuinely dangerous. A lot of warring militias there. On the east, under the Libyan National Army, run by the Haftar family, that is in good shape. And they are doing what they can with limited resources. I'm not sure actually they get hundreds of millions from the Italians. They may get a little bit from the EU, but they don't get much at all. But here's what they do. You know, we throw hundreds of millions at the French, literally hundreds of millions at the French, who have never stopped and turned around a single boat. The French do that. And yet here are the Libyans who are quite happy to turn back the boats. That is what they do. The Coast Guard, the Navy, I interviewed the naval chiefs, I interviewed the Coast Guard. This is what they set out to do. They actually stop the boats. And yet we're not recognizing that. We're not helping them stop the boats. We're not helping them with the kit they need, you know, because of historic sanctions, which I'm sure are justified, certainly on the west side, but affect the whole country. They can't actually even get spare parts for their boats. They're not allowed to import anything that could be used for a military purpose. So they're trying to fight this crisis, this massive flow of people heading up, using Libya as a corridor, with their hands tied behind their back. So this is why Reform UK has said, actually, you know what, we'd work with the Libyans. We'll work with anybody that can help the UK solve the crisis. And by by their side, on the authorities in the East are very open to working with us. And these are the kind of pragmatic deals that I think a future government should be looking at. Forget the French. The French are not helping us, are they? Be a bit more creative here and work with countries that actually are prepared to deport and detain and stop boats.
Well said, well said. Perhaps that's where we should, instead of giving £500 million to the French, in fact more than that over the years, best part of £700 million to stop the boats, which they don't do. How about we take some of that money, give it to countries like Libya, particularly Libya, who have the will and the resolve to actually do this job, whereas the French don't. So let's be more international. Let's look further afield from where we can stop the flow. You know, almighty rivers start from tiny springs, the Amazon, the Nile, etc. That's the same. That's an analogy for the migrant crisis. They start in little villages in Eritrea, in Chad, in Sudan, and they grow and they grow and they grow, and by the time they're in Libya there's nearly 1 million of them, and they all want to come our way. So yeah, let's go to the source of the problem. Good idea. Great report, Isabel, well done. When we come back, we'll talk about the migrant crisis again, and old Kemi Badenoch down at the Tory conference going all reform UK. We'll talk about that next. Stay tuned.
When we found out this guy, Jihad al-Shami, named by his father, Syrian-born, his father and his mother brought him to this country after naming him Jihad. Should we have let him in? I'm wondering this. He was then given British citizenship. His father had called the October 7th attackers heroic in a public tweet, blatantly, openly celebrating one of the most horrific massacres, the worst since the Holocaust, of Jewish people. And here's the thing. We've imported this problem.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Well, we've just played Isabel Oakeshot's brilliant report from Libya about the source of or one of the major sources of our migrant crisis. But meanwhile, up here in the north, the migrant crisis continues apace. Last week, for 7 days in a row, from the previous Saturday until Friday just gone, 7 days in a row, pretty much every day, I think it was, funny enough, except one day when 70 came across, but pretty much every day hundreds of migrants came across. Altogether, from Saturday, September the 27th till last Friday, 3 days ago, 2,143 migrants came across the 21-mile wide English Channel illegally. To be welcomed into our absurdly generous asylum system, of course. This proves that Starmer's stupid one-in, one-out nonsense is not a deterrent, on account of it's clearly not deterring anyone. Labour won't leave the ECHR, therefore it can never solve the crisis. Everything you hear from tough as old boots, hard as nails, yeah, my backside, Shabana Mahmood, the new Home Secretary, and Keir Starmer, it's nonsense, just tinkering around the edges. If we don't leave the ECHR, you can't solve it, simple as that. They won't do it. Late in life, the Tory leader, for it is the conference of the Titanic conference of the Conservative Party this week. Late in life, Kemi Badenoch, she's taken about a year to come round to this way of thinking, commissioned a study into it, couldn't quite make up her own mind. She's finally realised that we should leave the ECHR. Welcome to the party, Kemi, better late than never. Meanwhile, she also vows to set up a British ICE force, like the American force, to deport 750,000 illegal migrants at the rate of £150,000 a year. Out of 150,000 migrants a year. So that's 750 illegal migrants, 150,000 a year by our British ICE force, the deportation squad. Before you actually talk about this, you should know, Isabel, that the Tories are firing on all cylinders at their conference. They handed around these chocolate bars to pour scorn, to deride Labour's pathetic negotiations on the migrant crisis front. It says, when Labour loses, on the bar of the chocolate, when Labour loses, Britain loses. They spelt Britain wrong. Sums that party up, doesn't it? But do you trust her? Will she deport 750,000 illegal migrants at the rate of 150,000 a year? I don't think so, do you?
I just think no. Our biggest problem is just no one's listening.
Yes.
No one is listening. We've seen. I generally don't like these pictures that newspapers or media sometimes runs of what look like empty auditoriums, because it's actually quite easy to make what's a fairly full hall look very empty just by taking a particular angle or whatever. But in this case, it genuinely does look like some of the keynote speeches at Tory conference were only attended by a couple of hundred people. I mean, it ought to be a couple of thousand. It's the official opposition, in case people have forgotten, which they could be forgiven for having done. And the truth is that the Tories just look totally irrelevant. Nobody is interested in their policy proposals, because all that anyone can think is, yeah, guys, but you had 14 years to do it and you didn't. And we're not giving you another chance anytime soon. I think that's what most people are saying. As you were running through those numbers that have come over just in the last...
2,143.
Yeah, has anyone heard from the one-in, one-out frontline team lately? I mean, have we seen any pictures of planes taking off packed full of migrants? Have we had even 5 out? I think, let's be fair, I do believe that hardly anyone noticed, because no one cared. Friday, I think it was, we got 10 more out or something. Oh, good. Okay,
Starmer, so I think we've so far got about 16 back to France, and we've had 3 in. Meanwhile, 2,143 in 7 days up until Friday.
Okay.
I mean, it's baffling, the one-in, one-out scheme, because it's supposed to be a deterrent. And it's clearly not deterring anyone. It's a joke.
They should dunk it now. They should just forget it. Sometimes there's that expression in business, the first loss is the best loss. I mean, this would not be the first loss. Just basically, it's not even quit while you're ahead. It's quit before you get so embarrassingly far behind that you are. Oh, I don't know. They passed that point long ago, didn't they? But there's no point in the scheme, none whatsoever. It just involves more money, more nonsense. Forget it.
It's an absolute joke. And as I said just now, as long as we don't leave the ECHR, leaving the ECHR isn't the cure-all. It's the start. But unless you leave the ECHR, you literally cannot solve the migrant crisis because you can't make your own sovereign decisions. It's as simple as that. Took Kemi a long time to get to this point, but welcome to the party, Kemi. Better than late than never, as I said. But what I think is interesting about this narrative at the empty Conservative conference is this. You know, she's just nicking all the policies from Reform UK, isn't she? She's noticed that Nigel is storming it, so she said, I'll deport 750,000 illegal migrants, I'll set up a squad, a crack army unit to deport them, and so on and so forth. She is just trying to steal the thunder of Reform, and it's not going to work, and she's really, really pissed off a lot of people in her own party who don't want her to try to copy Reform, but I think she in desperation thinks it's the only hope.
Yeah, and it's, I don't even think Reform cares. You know, it can be frustrating for parties when other parties sort of steal their ideas, but the Tories look so irrelevant now that it doesn't really matter what they take from Reform's inspiration. It's not going anywhere. It's not rescuable, not under Kemi Badenoch, and probably not under any leader anytime soon. I think actually I saw some polling in the last couple of days that suggested it wouldn't make much difference who was the leader of the Tory party. You know, the fundamental problem is that they just don't have a hearing.
No, they don't. Talking of polls, by the way, as I predicted in terms of Labour, polls came out at the weekend proving that Starmer's attacks on Nigel Farage as a racist and Reform supporters being racist policies officially rebounded. Reform has continued to rise in the polls. Labour's sunk even lower, lost more than 5 points again. So that's not working either. With Labour, we're seeing a government that's dying, and with the Tories we're seeing a party that's dying. It's as simple as that. Isabel, fantastic stuff. Thank you very, very much for your, especially for your Libyan report. You'll be back with us on Wednesday, I do believe. I can't wait for that. Thank you very much. I'm off to have a little bite of some When Labour Negotiates, Britty Ann Loses Tory chocolate during the break. Going to enjoy that. Britty Ann can't even spell Britain. Come on, Kemi, get your act together. Next up, we're going to talk about Zach Palensky, the leader of the Green Party. That next. Stay tuned.
Do you think it's a racist policy?
Well, I do think that it's a racist policy. I do think it's immoral. It needs to be called out for what it is.
According to Keir Starmer, if you think young men that illegally cross the English Channel should be detained and deported, you're racist. In fact, if you even criticise any element of the immigration policies of the last two governments, you're racist. And yet the Home Secretary, Shubham Mahmood, tries to copy our policies.
Patriotism, a force for good, is turning into something smaller, something more like ethno-nationalism, which struggles to accept that someone who looks like me and has a faith like mine can truly be English or British.
Britain is being invaded. Thousands of fighting-age men from countries that despise Britain continue to arrive on our beaches. Our plan is the only appropriate response to a national security emergency. Immediate removal. Deportation is the ultimate deterrent.
Our flags flying proudly as we celebrate difference and oppose racism.
Labour says these policies are racist and immoral, and by implication, Reform supporters, Reform voters, Reform sympathisers are racist too. Yes, if you think we should control our borders, you are by the definition of the Prime Minister and his cabinet, all racists.
We can all see that the country faces a choice, a defining choice. Britain stands at a fork in the road. We can choose decency, or we can choose division, renewal or decline.
To accuse countless millions of being racist is a very, very low blow. Why? Well, this language will incite and encourage the radical left. I'm thinking of Antifa and other organisations like that. It directly threatens the safety of our elected officials and our campaigners. And frankly, in the wake of the Charlie Kirk murder, I think this is an absolute disgrace.
Do you think it's a racist policy?
Well,
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Now, I don't agree with much that the Green Party stands for, but I've always had a sort of soft spot for them in a way. Hackney Marshes. No. Seriously, just that, you know, they're a sort of bunch of people with beards and glasses. Good, you know. And as for the men, but seriously, you know, they got their hearts in the right place, care about the planet and all that kind of thing. Never did any harm, really. Now, though, they seem to have been taken over by a guy called David Polden, who changed his name for some reason to Zach Polanski. His deputy is a guy called Mothin Ali. Now, Zach Polanski is a sort of raving communist, really. And it just feels like he's kind of completely hijacked this well-intentioned eco-party to turn it into a sort of tub-thumping outfit of the far left. They just had their party conference, and it was bizarre, frankly. You know, he sort of tore into Nigel Farage. He gave interviews saying Nigel Farage was a fascist who wanted to turn Britain into a one-party state. Where did he get that from? Well, look, we're going to talk to the excellent Reform UK Councillor Darren Grimes in just a second. But before we get to that, have a look at Zach Polanski, as he now calls himself, ranting and raving about migrants being welcome here, and also about Nigel Farage. Have a look at this.
When Farage says jump, Labour might say how high. But the Greens will never dance to the tune of a Trump-loving, tax-avoiding, science-denying, NHS-dismantling corporate stooge. You might as well stay on your feet, because I'm going to say, we'll say it loud, we'll say it clear, migrants and refugees are welcome here.
He's a former actor, a wannabe actor, studied acting at Aberystwyth University, managed to get himself a seat on the London Assembly, is now the Green Party leader. And he used to, for a living, you know the way Labour likes to call Reform Party people snake oil salesmen? Well, this guy, Zach Polanski, or should I call him David Polden? I just don't know. I don't know why he changed his name, but he did. I think it sounds more sort of dramatic, more kind of politico. Zach Polanski! You know, David Polden doesn't have quite the same bite. God knows why he did it, but he did. This guy, snake oil salesman, if you will, used to earn a living conning women that he could enlarge their breasts through the power of hypnotism. There he is. There he is. He now apologises for this. And well, you might, Zach, and well, you might. But somebody who used to do this for a living, hey, you know, I'll put you under. Watch this, you know. You were feeling a bit sleepy. Oh, look, your breasts are growing. Yeah, right, Zach. Yeah, we believe that. Now, meanwhile, he has a deputy called Mohsin Ali. Now, Mohsin Ali is a Leeds councillor, Green councillor, who's currently embroiled in a massive argument because he called a rabbi who was a chaplain at Leeds University a creep, who went back to Israel to kill children. It's a rabbi called Zachariah Deutsch, who actually went back to his home country, he's an Israeli citizen, to fight with the IDF because he was a reserve IDF soldier. A creep who went back to return to Israel to kill children. Now, when you start accuse Jewish people of killing children, that is an anti-Semitic trope. And here is Mohsin Ali in a moment of triumph when he was elected the Green councillor for a ward in Leeds City Council. Check it out.
We will not be silent. We will raise the voice of Gaza. We will raise the voice of Palestine. Allahu Akbar! Allahu Akbar!
Enough said. Well, let's go straight over to Reform UK councillor, deputy leader, Darren Grimes. Darren, really pleased you could join us. How are you doing?
I'm marvellous. All the better for seeing you, Kev. I mean, your show's called The Asylum. I feel like I'm in one at the minute. I don't know about you.
Yeah, well, you certainly are now you're on this show. No, but I take your point. Seriously, this guy, Zach Polanski, you know, I put on Twitter on Saturday, just offhandedly, why is this guy David Bolden? Why did he change his name to Zach Polanski? People say, oh, well, it's his family name, it's his Jewish name. It's not. Zach is the some favourite character of his in some novel that he likes. And the Polanski apparently does come from his Jewish grandfather who was killed in the Holocaust, so sympathy for that, of course. But, you know, this is a guy, changes his name, used to earn a living, conning women that he could enlarge their breasts through the power of hypnotism. And is now ranting and raving about Nigel Farage wanting a one-party state, being a fascist. You heard that sort of almost comical avalanche of socialist left-wing cliches from him. I mean, as I say, I used to sort of have a bit of affection for the Green Party. I didn't agree with them, but I admired their commitment to their cause, and they only wanted to make the planet a better place. But they've been hijacked, haven't they, by some kind of ranting communist, as far as I can see.
Oh, absolutely. They've gone from animal welfare and windmills into absolute chaos, right? They are so far off the trajectory that I now argue that if you take their cross at put your cross in the box of the Green Party these days, you're voting for the monster Raven Looney Party. Only this monster is very real and very much alive. You know, he changed his name to Ski, Kev. I wonder if he's actually taken that a little bit too literally, because he's skied right off the edge of sanity into an age of complete insanity for the Green Party. On a serious point, though, I would argue that monsters would quite literally describe the body of what they've become. This is a party, as you've described, given succour and support to those who I would argue simply do not wish our nation well. They refuse to accept biological reality. Maybe Zach in a former life could have enlarged the breasts of these men that he thinks are women. And actually maybe Polanski, you know, the doomsday cult of eco-extremism could tell his party that the posh and the privileged who glue their behinds to the roads to stop working class men going to work, that they are the exemplars of the modern day political left. And I tell you, Kev, I don't say that as a compliment, I say that as a criticism. The man is a supreme narcissist. He has emboldened, I would argue, some of the most evil elements of British political life. And I do not think the Green Party are a good force for sensible democratic participation. I think actually they are becoming far too hardline on many of the things that are deeply troubling to me and have made me feel a deep sense of dread, especially since that terror attack in Manchester last week.
Well, indeed, and I got that slightly wrong about his taking the name of Polanski from his grandfather. I said that he died in the Holocaust. In fact, his grandfather, someone called Polanski, fled Nazi Germany. So once again, no issue with that, of course. But when I posted on Twitter, it's had more than 1 million views. Why did this? I think I called him a cartoon caricature, which is what he is. He's a caricature sort of commie ranter, wants to soak the rich and so on and so forth. I said, why did he change his name? So everybody said, well, it's his Jewish name and you're being anti-Semitic. No. He changed his name to Zach because that's a character from his favourite novel, apparently. I'm not sure what novel it is. And the original surname of his grandfather was Polanski. A lot of people thought that perhaps he changed his name because he was a big admirer of the paedophile film director Roman Polanski, but it wasn't that. But I just think you should be suspicious of politicians who change their name. Think about it. He was called David Paulden. Now, on the pulpit, in headlines, it's like sort of Lenin. That wasn't his name. Doesn't Lenin mean man of steel or something? Like these communists change their name to something tough and catchy and strong. This guy, David Paulden, changed his name to Zach Polanski. He said he didn't like the name David because his stepdad was called David, and I didn't like being a little version of my stepdad.
Yeah.
This is just smoke and mirrors. This is nonsense. This is a guy who wants to have a catchy name that he thinks will make him look good in the headlines and on pulpits, and people like that, they're called frauds. They're not to be trusted, are they?
Well, I think he is a fraud. He left the Liberal Democrats, presumably, getting involved in local politics, as the Lib Dems do quite successfully. We have found that we have to actually model the Lib Dem strategy when it comes to local elections and local politics. But he's gone from the Lib Dems to being the face of a party that rejects not just science, but actually rejects decency as well. You mentioned earlier, Kev, that he says he was scathing of Nigel Farage, and that Farage wanted to create a one-party state. Well, as you said, I don't know where he's gotten that from, probably in one of his hypnotist sessions. But he has defended that deputy leader who did call the British rabbi a creep and accused him of going to kill kids. Kev, I was in Israel 2 months ago, right, and I met young lads. Some of them I've met have come from Gateshead. There's a big Jewish community in the northeast of England, in order to actually defend the right of the State of Israel to exist. The idea that these young lads, some of them from Britain, who go out to Israel, who may well not come back, Kev, go out there with the sole intent of killing children, is a sick and disgusting and twisted smear from privileged middle-class prats whose moral compass is so well and truly skewed and broken that I have no idea how they manage to look themselves in the mirror on a morning.
Absolutely, Darren. We started the show by discussing this, that tomorrow universities all over the country will celebrate October the 7th with big pro-Palestine demonstrations. Liverpool University, you won't believe it, is having a Palestine Bake Day where they celebrate the wonder of Palestinian cuisine. And it's called Time for Dessert is on the posters. Can you believe that? It's so insensitive. Now, also, let's remember with old Zach, or David Paulden, in the early 2010s it was, he worked at a place in Harley Street, a very expensive area of private medicine, for the Cognitive Hypnotherapy and Transformative Coaching Clinic, called the Lewis Clinic, where he conned women into believing he could enlarge the size of their breasts with the power of hypnotism. So that's the kind of guy we're talking about. Let's briefly also talk about his equally worrying deputy, Mohsin Ali. We just played him when he was triumphant in his ward being voted onto Leeds City Council. You know, you heard about it, the glory of Palestine, Allahu Akbar, and all that. I mean, what is that about? Now, as you quite rightly just said, this guy, Mohsin Ali, has been embroiled in a massive row with a rabbi, a guy called Zachariah Deutsch, who was a chaplain at Leeds University. After the October the 7th horror in 2023, Zachariah, who was a reserve soldier for the IDF, went back to his home country as an Israeli citizen to perform his duty for the IDF. For this, Mohsin Ali, this is before he was Deputy Green Party leader, called him a creep who was going back to his home country to kill children. Now, we know what that is, don't we? That is a classic anti-Semitic trope. That's what Jewish people call the ultimate blood libel, when people say to them, you're Jewish, therefore you love killing children. Mohsin Ali, deputy leader, this fraud, Zach Polanski's deputy, some kind of Islamist fanatic. What is happening to the Green Party again, Darren?
Yeah. I mean, you're right. They've gone from saving badges to being a political skipfire led by hardline fanatics who are appealing to hardline fanatics. You know, they investigated Mohsin Ali for those comments that you rightly point out, and he suggested that Palestine had the right, Hamas had the right, to fight back after October 7th. And the outcome of that, Kev, is that they don't shun him. They don't say, well, this man is beyond the pale, and that actually the beheadings, the rapes and all the rest of it that took place on October 7th. You know, I remember I was there 2 months ago, as I say, Kev, and I saw an ambulance which a young girl was hiding in with a group of others. And this young girl had been shot in the leg, and she thought that that ambulance was her road to safety at the Nova Music Festival. She ended up being blown up in it by an RPG, and they only found out that she was in it months later because they found her pendant, her necklace, on the floor of the rubble that was left from that ambulance. And this, the idea that that is a fighting back for a good cause, to me, is utterly sickening. It is a form of as you rightly identify, classic anti-Semitism, that blood libel. It isn't tolerance that they're promoting. I think it's moral cowardice. It is a sickening endorsement of the kinds of things that lead to, after a terror attack, protesters being jubilant on the streets of both London and Manchester where it happened. And Labour mayors don't come out to condemn it, don't say it shouldn't happen, don't ban it, prescribe it in the way they have other protests. So I find the whole thing a sickening display of the moral depravity that British politics is heading in by pandering to some really quite vicious extremism within our country. They've gone from being the politics of the Women's Institute to the politics of the Westminster Institute for Insanity and Barbarism, Kev. That's what they're doing
Well said, Darren. Let me ask the audience that. What do you think? I mean, what is going on with the Green Party? These two people, this dangerous duo, I would suggest. You've got Zach Polanski, David Polden is his actual name. Why did he change his name? Why? Because he wants to get noticed. Thinks it's more groovy, interesting to be called Zach Polanski than David Polden. Probably is, to be fair. Him, who, you know, barely mentions green policies. He just bangs on and on about Farage being a fascist and, you know, Trump and so on and so forth. He's a dangerous lefty, and Mohsin Ali, arguably, is some kind of Islamist fanatic. Allahu Akbar! When he won his... And that's the deputy leader of the Green Party. Have they been hijacked? Have the Greens been hijacked by a dangerous duo? Let me ask you that. 03444991000. Darren is going to stick around because when we come back, we're going to talk about a story that I think is outrageous. Tower Hamlets Council here in London will, on Wednesday, take a vote and it'll almost certainly get passed, where they will officially label the pink ladies, those lovely ladies protesting worried about their daughters, their granddaughters, their local communities protesting about asylum seekers in their midst. Primarily, they're the ladies from Epping, who, not unsurprisingly began to protest because it turned out that one asylum seeker, in fact, turned out there were a couple more after this, but one asylum seeker was arrested and charged with 2 sexual assaults. He's since gone to jail for that. So they were right, weren't they? There's another asylum seeker charged with sex crimes there. They're still protesting. And the pink ladies, you saw them all around the country. They are mothers, they are grandmothers. They're worried about their kids. They're worried about safety on the streets in their local communities. And Tower Hamlets Council wants to take a vote on Wednesday to officially call them far right. What is that about? What is that about? They also want to call the campaign for raising the colours. They want to call them far right. People who love the British flag, who love the Union Jack and the St George's flag, want to call them far right. What is going on? Darren and I will discuss that after this break, so stay tuned.
have a Labour Party that is in denial on that and borrowing and spending and taxing like there's no tomorrow. And we've got a Reform Party which is peddling fantasy economics, promising everybody everything they want to hear, but not really coming up with any clear plan as to how they're going to deliver or pay for it. And we've got to be the grown-ups in the room. We do need to get a grip of debt, the servicing costs on that debt, and that means getting a grip on government spending. We can no longer continue in the way we are, living beyond our means, because I'm afraid that will end up in a very dark place if we do.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to the Political Asylum. I'm Zip Jetski. I've changed my name to Zip Jet Ski because I think it makes me seem more interesting, like Zach Polanski, who's actually called David Paulden. The leader of the Green Party. Let's go back to Reform UK's excellent Darren Grimes. Darren, thanks for sticking around because I wanted to... What do you think of my name, by the way? Zip Jet Ski, you like that?
Oh, I love it, but you're not going off the piste into insanity, though, Kev. Don't worry.
Well, some people might take issue with that, but I do my best. I do my best. This, I think, does make me insanely mad. On Wednesday, Labour-controlled Tower Hamlets Council here in London will table a motion to label the Pink Ladies, those mothers and grandmothers who've been protesting about asylum seekers, sexual offenders in their midst, and the Raise the Colours campaign, those patriots who rather like our Union Jack and St George's flags. Labour-controlled Tower Hamlets will table a motion, it'll probably get through, most certainly, which will label both the Pink Ladies, and these are the ones I'm particularly worried of, the Pink Ladies, and the Raise the Colours campaign as far right. It's going to say that those ladies who are worried about their daughters and their kids and safety on the streets of their local communities, who in Epping were proved to be exactly right, while all the lefties go, oh yeah, they're just fascists and Nazis. No, no, no. The person they were protesting about was a sex offender, tried to sexually assault 2 women in Epping and has gone to jail for that. So they were right. Tower Hamlets Council wants to call these ladies far right. Your thoughts?
Well, look, Kev, I mean, you put it well there. We've reached a point, haven't we, where a Labour authority and Labour politicians, and the Tower Hamlets is obviously synonymous with a really quite obnoxious form of politics these days and other scandals and all the rest of it. But we've reached a point where mothers and grandparents standing up for women's safety after an abuse that ought never have happened, because this individual ought never have been allowed to stay in the country, are smeared with far right. And it's a smear campaign by a Labour-run council desperate to shut people up because they are highlighting their failures. Instead of actually listening to them and understanding them, they want to smear ordinary women for raising a flag for their daughters and branding them extremists by the very people who failed, absolutely failed, unequivocally failed, to actually keep them safe. So if in the Tower Hamlets and other areas who are concerned about foreigners coming over here who we know next to nothing about, who do not share our views, values and culture, especially when it comes to our position on the protection and sanctity of females, that actually they ought to be smeared. That you cannot possibly allow the dogma of multiculturalism to be challenged in that way, because it might mean that the whole project comes crashing down. I wouldn't argue that areas like Tower Hamlets, Kev, have been an overwhelming success story, and I don't think you would either.
Nope.
So maybe they could learn a thing or two about the women of Epping standing up for their communities instead of pandering to, I think, what is a really quite dangerous form of politics that has been allowed to spread throughout our country.
You know what makes me sick about this, Darren, is this. These people, the type of people who are going to vote on Wednesday and no doubt label officially the lovely Pink Ladies and indeed the patriots of the Raising the Colours campaign, who are going to label them far right, fascists, Nazis, racists. They believe they're still stuck in the past of that era when they tried to shut down, close down all sensible logical debate by just calling their political opponents racists and Nazis. Yep. In other words, it's a way they've always had to shut down a proper political discourse. I don't agree with you, you're a racist, you're a Nazi. Well, in the past, you know, unfortunately, that kind of technique had some success, but we as a nation, we're more sophisticated than this, and we see these people, we see what they're doing. They don't really think that the Pink Ladies are far right. They just think that by calling them far right, they can maybe shut them up. That's what it's about. And that era is over. We're not falling for that anymore. You can't just call me or Darren Grimes or the Pink Ladies racists and expect us to shut up and expect people to take those accusations seriously. Am I right?
Oh, you are bang on. I might as well call it a night now, Kev. Look, the Labour Party, you know, teaming up with this Aspire, right, who are dodgier than something off the back of a van or, you know, Del Boy's three-wheeler. They're actually branding, as you say, working-class mams as extremists to silence their voices. And I remember actually, Kev, being told that to silence a woman for having an opinion was something called misogyny. Now, that might be all right in the Middle East, but it ain't all right here in the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. We let women speak about their safety. We let women speak about their concerns for their daughters. We let women speak about the fact that our borders are wider open than Bonnie Blair's OnlyFans account. You know, we've got to get real on this. We've got to stand up for these women, because Tower Hamlets, right, it once stood up to actual fascists, right? Actual fascists who wanted to align us with the Nazis. And now they smear British mothers waving flags as fascists. It's comical. It's pathetic, Kev. We need a grown-up discourse in this country that does defend border controls, that does defend women's safety, and that doesn't defend pandering to Islamist elements that are in our society, I'm afraid to say.
And it's absolutely disgraceful to try to smear the Pink Ladies like this, and indeed the campaign for raising the colours. But the Pink Ladies, we're going to speak to one in a minute. Do me a favour. Last personal question, Darren. How is it on the other side of the fence now that you're actually a politician? You're deputy leader of Durham City Council, aren't you? How is it going?
Durham County Council.
County Council, sorry.
We're not city dwellers, that's the Lib Dems, Kev, that's the Lib Dems. Look, honestly, it's been a roller coaster. It's very intense, but it's really rewarding work as well. I think being able to actually stand up for people like the Pink Ladies, we actually as an authority have introduced Article 4 measures, which are saying to Westminster and, primarily this Labour government, that you cannot force us to take Westminster's migrants. We're not going to do it in this county. We are pushing through radical reforms on planning to say that they have to apply for planning permission. And, I don't know if you're a betting man, Kev, but you might want to put one on for what we'll do if we do get those planning applications coming across our desks. Because we've got to actually stand up for people in Britain who have been maligned like those Pink Ladies, smeared like those Pink Ladies, those who can't afford to pay their energy bills as well because of net stupid zero. There are a whole host of ways in which actually we are starting to show through local government that we are ready for real government, that this country needs reform. It's crying out for reform, defending our speech, defending our economy, defending our right to basic safeties and liberties. All of these things, I think, show that we are on a worthy cause in this country. Reform councillors up and down the country. People laugh and say, oh, Grimes, he focuses on bins these days. Well, I tell you what, bins matter to people, and what matters to people matters to me.
Yeah, exactly right. I think I'm speaking to a future cabinet secretary here. Seriously, Darren, it's great to have you on the show. Come on again very soon. Is that a deal?
It is, mate. Cheers.
Great to talk to you. The brilliant Darren Grimes, now Deputy Leader of Durham County Council, must get that right. Obviously a long-time political commentator, now a politician. Now, we're going to go to break now. When we come back, we're going to stick with the Pink Ladies. We're going to talk to a Pink Lady and ask her what she thinks about the fact that a bunch of councillors in East London, in Tower Hamlets, are about to vote her into the ranks of the far right. Honestly, you know, I know I keep saying this, these are mothers and grandmothers who are worried about their kids. They're worried about safety on the streets. How dare they vote them into the realms of far... They're not far right. They're mums, they're grandmothers. Come on. 0344499 1000. So we speak to a Pink Lady next. Stay tuned.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Just had a text from Pete the Mole. He said, can't the Green Party be placed on the proscribed terrorist group supporters list and be banned? The way they're going, it might be a thought. Seriously. Right, let's get back to our agenda. And yes, we just talked to Darren Grimes about the fact that Tower Hamlets Council, big council here in East London, not far from Talk Towers, will on Wednesday table a motion that the Pink Ladies are far right. In other words, sort of say they're Nazis, they're fascists. Which I think is an absolute disgrace. So it is a privilege now to talk to one of the Pink Ladies. She's been on this show before and she's a very articulate spokeslady for their cause. Sarah White, welcome to the show, Sarah.
Evening, Kevin. How are you?
I'm very, very well. How do you feel about the fact that Tower Hamlets Council will, in all probability, given that they are a big Labour majority and they're tabling the motion, will vote you, a Pink Lady, into the realms of the far right? They're going to say that the Pink Ladies, mothers, grandmothers, women who protest against the decreasing safety on their streets, worried about their daughters, their sons, how do you feel that this council is going to say you're far right, you're fascists, you're Nazis? How do you feel about that?
Well, I think it's outrageous. And, you know, but the problem is the word racist now has been thrown about so much and used too often that it's lost all meaning. But where is the accountability for this council? Why isn't people above them in power saying, you can't do this? Because that sets a precedent, doesn't it? If we're going to be labelled far right in Tower Hamlets, then that means that every borough across this country, if they deem us that they don't like what we're doing, they're going to be allowed to do the same as Tower Hamlets. It's just outrageous. It's ludicrous what's going on. It really is. And where is the diversity in Tower Hamlets itself when they've got 45 councillors and most of their names end in Ahmed, Chowdhury or Hussein? It's predominantly men, predominantly from one cultural background, who all have the idea that women shouldn't even be a second-class citizen. So where on earth do the Pink Ladies come into this? They want to silence us, but we will not be silenced.
Did you get in trouble for waving the Union Jack or wearing the Union Jack as well? I mean, what do you think about the fact that Tower Hamlets Council, as well as voting the Pink Ladies to be far right, plan to vote the Raise the Colours campaign to be far right as well?
Well, of course they do. You know, it's absurd, isn't it, that to wave your own flag in your own country, you're deemed to be a racist. I mean, this is the problem in this country. Our British flag has been seen as a racist symbol, and that's got to stop. If I went to Pakistan and flew their flag, it wouldn't be racist. If I go to America and fly their flag, it's not racist. Every other country is allowed to fly their flag proudly, but for some reason here in the UK we're not allowed to show our flag, and that is why so many people now are coming out and putting flags up on lampposts, because we have had enough, and we are not putting up with it. And they need to realise that everybody in this country is at boiling point, and it really is, and we have had enough, and we will not be silenced by Tower Hamlets Council, and we will be protesting in Whitechapel on Wednesday at 5 p.m. And, you know, a lot of people have said, aren't you scared to go to Whitechapel? Because people there will attack you.
Is this the Pink Ladies, Sarah?
Yes.
So you're going to Whitechapel, if you like, that's deep in the heart of Tower Hamlets, isn't it?
Yes.
Very big Muslim population, and you're going to fight your cause there.
Yes, we are. We're going to let them know that we are there. We will be seen. We will be peaceful, as we always are. But you will not silence us. And this is what, unfortunately, people in Tower Hamlets, it's not a diverse bunch in Tower Hamlets, because people are predominantly from one cultural background, and they wish to silence women. So why on earth would they not want us silenced as well? I mean, look at what you've got up there. I mean, I'm probably one of the youngest people. I'm not the youngest, but a lot of our women, you know, are in their 80s. How on earth can you deem a woman in her 80s as far right, fascist, racist? It's ridiculous.
And what happened with you and the flag?
I held the flag over the council offices and I was brutally arrested by 3 police officers, kept in a police cell for 24 hours. I've been charged and I appear in court next Wednesday.
And what is your offence, your alleged offence, if you don't mind me telling?
So my alleged offence is that I deferred from the route of a procession. The procession was laid out by the police commissioner the day before to go from the Bell Hotel to the Civic Centre, and the police didn't know that the Civic Centre was the council offices, and they was the stairs that I was standing on. So I didn't defer from a route, and no common sense is kicked in with any officer, apparently.
Well, it sounds to me as if essentially, you've been charged with that most heinous of crimes, holding the national flag.
Yeah, yes. And, you know, so people have said to me, you know, you could actually be looking at going to prison. Is a prisonable offence. I know I didn't defer from any route, but we are currently living in clown world. And if they're going to start labelling 80-year-old women who wear baby pink on a daily basis as far-right fascist thugs, then what chance do I have for holding up the national flag?
Well, I hope you'll be okay, sir. I really do. One last point I want to make and get your thoughts on. In the run-up to your friendly local sexual assaulting asylum seeker actually being found guilty and sent to prison, and I believe there's at least one other, maybe 2 other potential suspects, also asylum seekers in the same area. But in the run-up to that guy, was it a couple of weeks ago, going to jail, it was that you were sort of accused, you and the Pink Ladies were accused in Epping of like kind of whipping up a frenzy, that unjustified, you know, kind of free-for-all and angry riots and all that kind of stuff. But you were proved to be right, weren't you? There was a sexual assaulting asylum seeker who had sexually assaulted 2 women in your midst. You were right.
And one of them being a 14-year-old girl. So where is the apology from, you know, Stand Up to Racism? Where is the apology from all of them people that turned up and they brutally attacked a lot of the police officers? They caused carnage in our community. They left a trail of destruction with all their littering after they left their signs and placards behind and whatever other rubbish they choose to dump. And you know, and then they chose to come and counter-protest us again. And lo and behold, the guy was found guilty on 5 accounts, and he's got 12 months. But we've had no apology from them. We'll have no apology from anyone. We'll have no apology from the police for ferrying in these counter-protesters, which they did do, because there is video evidence of that. And it's just 2-tier policing. We've just had 3 guys arrested, charged in Epping, and they've each received, I think, 22 to 28 months each for, okay, it was aggravated charge. But how can you say that somebody who sexually assaults a child can only receive 12 months? And we know he will only serve another 2 months on top of what he's already served. So, you know, 4 months in total.
Yeah, that's what's happened today, isn't it? So we've learned that 3 protesters at Epping, you know, who took part in the sort of asylum seeker hotel protests, but all been jailed for longer than the sexual assaulter got jailed for. He got a year. They've all got more than that. One of them's got 2 years. I mean, they've all got criminal records. They're probably not the finest people who ever lived, but but there's something very unequal, isn't there? Something unfair seeming that a guy who sexually assaults 2 women, one is 14 years old, gets 1 year, and people who go to protest about that get 2 years. What is that all about?
Make it make sense. And at the end of the day, let's not forget that guy has already committed a crime because he'd broken into this country illegally and he was undocumented, and this has got to be stopped. Our government needs to put a stop to this because there is a massive problem in this country now, and they're not just talking about the boats coming in. What about the guys that they're flying in as well into Manchester Airport? It's utterly disgusting. And, you know, where is the ECHR for women and children's rights? Because they keep putting the rights of these undocumented men above women and children, and it has got to stop. And the pink ladies will not stop, and we will not be silenced.
Well said, Sarah. What time is your demo on Wednesday night?
It's going to be from 5 p.m.
OK, well, we come on air at 7 o'clock. Perhaps we'll catch up with you live at that demo. Look after yourself, though. Be safe, and we'll talk then. Thanks very much, Sarah. Really good to talk to you. Sarah White, Pink Lady. Do you think she's far right? Do you think her friends are far right? Absolutely disgraceful, isn't it? Let's go to break. When we come back, we're going to ask the big question. Why does a Labour backbencher get the privilege of a ministerial BMW? We're talking about Angela Rayner. She's a backbencher. She has a taxpayer-funded BMW, very expensive luxury car. Big stories at the weekend saying, oh, she let her partner, Sam Tarry, use it. Well, you know, that's an issue, I suppose. But why has she got it? She's a backbencher. Why are we taxpayers paying for a luxury flash BMW? Apparently, if you take into account her security officers as well, Angela Rayner's security is costing us £1,000 a day. Now, I don't object to her having security. Nigel Farage gets security, albeit they've reduced it. But, you know, controversial frontline MPs, you know, whose physical danger could be compromised, do get government-funded security. I have no objection to that. I have no objection to Angela Rayner getting that. She's a controversial, big noise MP, so she could be a risk. I don't mind that. But why does that entail her having basically a ministerial, flashy BMW paid for by us, brand new? What is that about? I mean, you know, you don't need a BMW to have security, do you? Why are we paying for her to have a BMW? 0344 499 1000. We'll ask that question next after these messages. Stick around.
The division that's being created is absolutely disgusting. Mainly created by angry middle-aged white men.
He is doing himself the divisive job that he refers to, that people like myself who proudly fly a flag in my garden and who rejoice when I drive under every motorway bridge now covered in Union Jacks and St George's crosses. Well, bring it on. And you know what, Gary Neville, you know, you've just finished your career.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. The former disgraced Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner, who had to quit because she avoided paying the right amount of stamp duty on her new £800,000 seaside flat in Hove in Sussex, and then lied about it. Well, there were stories all over the papers at the weekend, The Sun and the Mail on Sunday, saying that big scandal, she was letting her boyfriend, Sam Tarry, former Labour MP, use her taxpayer-funded BMW. They seem to be shifting furniture or stuff. He's got a place in nearby Brighton, she has a place in Hove. They were moving stuff between the two places or something. Background, why would she let Sam Tarry lose? I mean, yeah, I'm sure that's an issue. But my question was this. Why has she got a taxpayer-funded BMW? She's a backbench Labour MP. Only ministers get taxpayer-funded cars. What's that all about? What on earth is that all about? Let's talk to Labour councillor for Waltham Forest. He's been on the show before. He's one of the good guys from Labour. Sebastian Salek, thanks for joining us, Sebastian.
Hi, Kevin. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Well, explain to me. I mean, I put on Twitter yesterday, why is a backbench Labour MP getting a taxpayer-funded BMW? Why?
It is really unusual, isn't it? It's not something we see very often. This is all up to the parliamentary authorities. So this is not Keir Starmer making a decision. No politicians are involved in choosing what level of security various MPs get. It's the staff in Parliament, and they have done an assessment. They've looked at the risk, and they've decided that given the threats to Angela Rayner, who, let's not forget, 5 minutes ago was the Deputy Prime Minister, she needs guards and she needs transport. And yes, that comes at a cost, but I would much rather have that cost to her and to anyone else who needs it than to see another MP attacked, which, let's not forget, we've had 2 MPs murdered in the last 10 years, and they were both backbenchers. So I think it is the necessary precaution to take to avoid those tragedies happening again.
Has she retained this vehicle from when she was Deputy Prime Minister and Housing Secretary?
I don't know. I don't know whether it's the same car.
I think she has. Why doesn't Nigel Farage is equally in the firing line? He's a big security risk. And rather than give him a BMW, the parliamentary authorities have just reduced the security around him. He's a very serious target. Why would they reduce the security around Nigel Farage and not give him a big BMW while they give Angela Rayner, admittedly also a security risk, a BMW?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and it comes down to those individual assessments that the parliamentary authorities make. You remember that Angela Rayner had her house vandalised recently. I think from that we can deduce that there are quite active risks towards her, which would explain why she's being given this level of protection. To be honest, I don't know why the authorities decided to reduce the level of protection for Farage, but again, they must have made a calculation and decided that the risk was lower than what was being provided for.
A lot of the public will probably feel that that decision was politically motivated. A lot of the public suspecting that when Keir Starmer said to Ange, listen, you're going to have to go, you're going to have to quit, He might have said to her, well, I'll tell you what, though, I'll sort it so you can keep your ministerial car. That's what it sounds like. I'll tell you what it sounds like, Sebastian. This sounds like Westminster corruption. Look, I totally agree with you. She's a frontline, controversial politician, backbench or not, and she deserves security, just as people like Nigel Farage and other prominent politicians do as well. But this car thing smacks to me of corruption.
I think anyone who is using the C word wants to bring the receipts. I want to see the evidence of the corruption. And
you know what I'm saying, Sebastian. You know what people are thinking.
It's a brilliant tabloid story. Look, when I first read the headline...
It's a brilliant story. Never mind tabloids.
No, you're right. Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. You know, when I saw the headline of Angela Rayner's partners driving around in her car, I thought, what's going on? This is crazy. And then I read the actual story and saw that that's nothing of the sort. They're just ferrying some bits from his place to hers. You can completely understand why she wouldn't want to be there to do that.
Yeah, well, my feeling about Sam Tarry borrowing the car and using it, I thought, well, OK, some people get very worked up about that. I'm not worked up about that. I'm slightly worked up about why the hell taxpayers are funding a massive, great, very flashy BMW four-wheeler for a backbencher. That seems excessive to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think, honestly, if
you're agreeing with me, aren't you?
No, not necessarily. I just think when you're at the point where you're thinking about what car should Angela Rayner have, you're
No, she should have no car. No car, like all the other backbenchers.
But there's clearly a risk against her, and if she gets hurt, then
well, why hasn't Nigel Farage got a BMW then?
I don't know. I'm not privy to those assessments that are made within.
Or for that matter, Kemi Baden or whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, sure. And look, I think it just goes to show that this isn't about what job you have in Parliament. It's not about how senior you are. It's about how much risk there is against you.
Yeah. Or is it Keir Starmer and the Labour Party government looking after their old mate Angela Rayner? That's what a lot of people will be thinking. That's what I think, but I accept your argument as well, Sebastian. I've got to go now, but well said. Good to talk to you. Sebastian Selleck there, Labour councillor for Waltham Forest, doing a good job. What do you reckon of that, though? Why are we paying for a BMW for a backbencher? Give us security by all means, but a BMW? Really? Really? 03444991000. Kinsey Schofield next on Meghan in Paris. Stay tuned.
Do you think it's a racist policy?
Well, I do think that it's a racist policy. I do think it's immoral. It needs to be called out for what it is.
According to Keir Starmer, if you think young men that illegally cross the English Channel should be detained and deported, you're racist. In fact, if you even criticise any element of the immigration policies of the last two governments, you're racist. And yet the Home Secretary, Shubham Mahmood, tries to copy our policies.
Patriotism, a force for good, is turning into something smaller, something more like ethno-nationalism, which struggles to accept that someone who looks like me and has a faith like mine can truly be English or British.
Britain is being invaded. Thousands of fighting-age men from countries that despise Britain continue to arrive on our beaches. Our plan is the only appropriate response to a national security emergency. Immediate removal. Deportation is the ultimate deterrent.
Our flags flying proudly as we celebrate difference and oppose racism.
Labour says these policies are racist and immoral, and by implication, Reform supporters, Reform voters, Reform sympathisers are racist too. Yes, if you think we should control our borders, you are, by the definition of the Prime Minister and his cabinet, all racists.
We can all see that the country faces a choice, a defining choice. Britain stands at a fork in the road. We can choose decency, or we can choose division, renewal or decline.
To accuse countless millions of being racist is a very, very low blow. Why? Well, this language will incite.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Well, it's time now to go straight over to Los Angeles to talk to our fantastic royal guru, Kinsey Schofield, host of Kinsey Schofield Unfiltered. And Kinsey, we've got a lot to talk about tonight, haven't we?
I was just checking Us Weekly. You know, Harry and Meghan's personal press release service, allegedly. I want to give you some of the headlines from Us Weekly in the last few hours.
Okay.
Meghan Markle quietly attends Balenciaga's Paris Fashion Week show. Quietly. Why Meghan Markle attended the Balenciaga fashion show in Paris? Her connection explained. Well, you know, anything to try to dismiss those nasty predatory associations with that nasty ad campaign they did a few years ago. I mean, literally, it's just she's just there to support a friend that you can literally tell she doesn't know, because when they go to greet each other, it looks like an assault more so than a greeting.
Absolutely, Kinsey, and her pursuit of privacy gets more impressive by the day, doesn't it? I mean, she's obsessed about not being pictured, not being seen, obsessed with her own privacy, and she flew all the way to Paris to preserve her privacy, didn't she?
She did. You know, I mean, to me, this is just such a colossal mistake when it comes to, you and I were going to have a conversation no matter what on Thursday about Harry and Meghan accepting humanitarians of the year. Like, we were going to joke about what a vanity project this was and what it, you know, how we can't take this charity seriously. But they were going to get really good press around that. And it was going to be the usual suspects, People Magazine, Us Weekly, whatever. Yeah. But they were going to be praised over the weekend for this award. I think Meghan is so greedy that this is all blown up in their faces. And now they will struggle to secure the great headlines that they were going to receive later this week because of how silly she behaved in Paris.
Absolutely. I think we're going to talk about her outfit and other aspects of this trip in just a little while. But when I saw her, like, hogging the headlines as well, wearing that kind of weird outfit, and you did a spoof of it, all white. I said that she looked like the Pope after a bad night out. I won't use the exact words that I used. And you did a spoof, a sort of meme of her outfit looking like a toilet roll. But it was an appalling outfit. Everybody looked at it and went, "Oh God, what is this? This sort of white flowing thing, really rubbish." And but of course, for her, mission accomplished. I mean, it was dreadful, it was awful, but it was eye-catching. And it was always going to take the front pages by storm. She knew that. Mission accomplished, right?
I saw somebody compare it to a 5150 straitjacket. And, you know, 5150 is where Kanye was put into, Britney Spears was put into. When you go off the deep end.
Padded cell.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and I mean, after that Diana video, yes, it was giving 5150 jacket. Perhaps it should have been.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that. The Daily Mail over here in London did a question for its readers, and it was it tasteless of Meghan Markle to drive past the tunnel in which poor Princess Diana perished in that terrible car crash in 1998. There she goes. To drive past it, to video herself with her feet and her toes up like that. Look at that. Now, I mean, let me ask you this. A lot of people say, why, she's just videoing herself kicking back and on her way back to her hotel or something, and it happens to be going past that tunnel. What do you think? Do you think she did it deliberately?
Oh, I don't know if I think she did it deliberately, but I'm sick of her trying to sell us on the fact that we should like her because she is so caring about other people. We should like her because she knows Daniel's favorite food, our favorite snack. Trying to sell us on with Love Meghan being special because it's all about going the extra mile and making somebody feel special because you know all these little details about them. Well, if you know all these little details about your husband, you should know that in Spare, he writes about going through that tunnel at 65 miles an hour because he wants to recreate the feeling that his mom might have had. And that's where it hits him that his mother is really gone. And she didn't just disappear. Because he writes in Spare that for a while he didn't believe his mom was dead. And in that tunnel, he realizes she's gone and he has that realization. Andrew Morton writes about in his book how Meghan not only had his book, Diana, Her True Story, but in his Meghan Markle book, he writes about how Meghan was so moved by the death of Princess Diana that she collected toys and clothing for underprivileged children. And it's like, you should just know better. Like, are you really so stupid? Are you so callous? Are you so dismissive of your husband's feelings? Also, she makes a living off of her proximity to the British royal family. She must know what Paris means to royal watchers. It's where Diana had her last breath. It's where we lost Princess Diana, a woman whose skin she's constantly trying to wear and vulgarly become. Diana 2.0. Harry's always telling us she's just like my mom. So I just think that there's no excuse for it. I think she was trying to be a cute little influencer, and I think she comes off as a freaking moron.
And she's been mocked for this trip to Paris. Meghan in Paris, never mind Emily. She's talking about herself being back for her first time back to fashion shows in over a decade. But she basically hung out with serious Z-listers there, and it's been mocked as her Zoolander moment. In fact, she looked like a sort of Zoolander freak in that useless outfit, and didn't exactly get to rub shoulders with the A-list while she was there. I mean, what struck me about this, Kinsey, was this. If she hadn't gone to Paris, I would have said to you tonight, well, it's all been about Harry, hasn't it, lately? Everybody talking about his trip to London and his upcoming trip to New York, and he went to Ukraine, and Harry. Well, Meghan's gone very quiet. What's happening with her? And then suddenly you get this. And I sometimes think, I don't know what you think, that, she's always at war with the British royal family about column inches, who gets on the front page. Every time Catherine, Princess of Wales, gets good headlines, big headlines, she's got to respond, old Meghan, with something of her own, Catherine's going to the Trooping the Colour bravely, her first appearance since being struck down by cancer. Meghan releases a new range of dog biscuits, that kind of tit-for-tat publicity war. I think there's something in her that she's also at war, publicity-wise, with Harry. If Harry gets a lot of headlines, somehow she wants to get in the press again. She wants to get in the media. And I think that's what this trip to Paris was all about. Harry's been stealing all the limelight. I want to get it back, says Meghan. What do you reckon?
I disagree, because Harry swoops in and tries to distract from all the terrible Meghan Paris headlines by claiming stalker. A few hours after all the negative Meghan headlines starts to sprout, Prince Harry all of a sudden is in jeopardy. I think she was trying to distract from Prince William, his vulnerable interview on Apple Plus, which, by the way, has charted all over the world within the top 10. His interview with Eugene Levy on The Reluctant Traveler,
by the way,
he says...
What did you think of that? What did you think of it? I thought it was great.
I thought it was great. I thought it was so sweet. I thought it was epic. And he says 2024 was the hardest year for me. Well, you know what? Meghan Markle does not want you to have sympathy for the Prince and Princess of Wales over a cancer diagnosis, because that shut her down in 2024. Meghan Markle was not allowed to grow as an entrepreneur because Catherine and the King were sick, and she knew that anything she did would be destroyed by the media. Catherine's in remission. The King continues to fight fearlessly, his cancer. And so Meghan decides to make 2025 all about her. What we're seeing with Harry and Meghan right now is them trying to salvage 2025. I don't know if I'm allowed to repeat this, but I'll tell you, I just did a Meghan Markle documentary for a UK station. And they purchased every piece of product they could get their hands on for this documentary. Only a bottle of wine showed up. Only a bottle of wine. And then they got the email saying, sorry, we don't have that product you bought. Would you like to patiently wait for it? We don't know when it's going to be ready, or you can have a refund. 2025 has been a you-know-what show for Meghan Markle's as ever. First of all, she can't even have the name she wants, so she has to quickly change the name. Products are never available. People aren't impressed compared to price when the products actually show up. They're like, this is not worth what I paid for this. This is not worth the hype. Her show was destroyed the first go around. The second go around, it was completely ignored, which is almost more offensive to her. Her podcast completely disintegrates into thin air. What happened to Confessions of a Female Founder? She's a glorified jam salesperson. And then what is she selling at Paris Fashion Week?
Well, so what you think, you know, I bow to your superior knowledge. You think that the reason she went to Paris was that William was getting all the headlines because of that I watched the whole show last night, funnily enough, with Eugene Levy. Eugene Levy is an undercover, really good journalist, really good interviewer, I thought, over the pint, in a really charming way, getting the prince to open up. And I thought it was great because he's not a journalist, and people say, why didn't you ask about Harry? And he just said, well, I didn't.
Why would I?
No, he said, well, I didn't want to.
Yeah.
But it was a charming show. Prince William emerged from it, I thought, brilliantly. Very intelligent, thoughtful person. As you know, he indicated, I thought quite forcefully, that when he becomes king, we're going to get a very different kind of royal family. It was quite hard-hitting in a way. He sort of was implicitly saying, oh, my dad's a bit of a stick in the mud with tradition. I don't think you should be weighed down by tradition. We've got to live for today. So he made that kind of announcement. He did actually mention Harry at one point, but they didn't discuss that. But everything else was... and I don't think you should just reduce it to this, but in pure media terms, it was a triumph, certainly for Eugene Levy, but also for Prince William. It was a triumph for William. So you think that Meghan was in Paris to try and sort of do something about that, do you?
Yeah, I just think that she probably was resentful that all of these sympathetic headlines were popping up, because in the days leading up to that interview being available in full on October 3rd, every single headline was about Prince William's revelation that he really hurt throughout 2024, and that was the toughest year for him. Well, Meghan was paralyzed throughout 2024 and wasn't able to launch her business because they knew that there would be a lot of resentment towards them pushing a commercial venture while the entire world was waiting to see if Catherine was going to make it, if the king was going to make it. So the last thing she wants are for William and Catherine to be sympathetic characters, or for the world to focus on the royal family's illness. Or you really do start to recognize how shallow Harry and Meghan are.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. I think it had a lot to do, the Paris jaunt had a lot to do with William's PR triumph. And I don't think he did it artfully, by the way. I think he was a big American Pie fan, wasn't he? So he thought, oh, yeah, let's meet you. Let's meet Eugene. And I think
but there, you can see there is some strategy to it, because so right after that interview, he announces some new Earthshot news. We've got these new people I'm excited about. And he knows that he's going to get more coverage for this Earthshot video and announcement because he just did this Eugene. His team is so much smarter than Harry and Meghan's. I'm sorry. Actually, I'm not sorry. I'm proud of it.
Sorry, not sorry. Absolutely. No, I agree with you. In terms of As Ever, though, we need to talk about Centre Barley in a minute. Very interesting story emerged with Harry's former charity. We'll talk about that in a second. But you're right. I mean, As Ever, it just seems to have disappeared. I mean, she makes a few rather tragic Instagram posts, you know, saying, buy my cookie dough, and nobody does. And you're right. I mean, I've experienced this myself. Your documentary you've been making, they tried to get all the products. Do you remember a while back when As Ever first launched its products on an unsuspecting market? I tried to get all of them. We managed to get 3. That was right at the beginning. We managed to get the Scam Jam, the cookie dough that I made, and dried flowers. That was it. You couldn't get anything else. That was at the beginning. Now, I suspect it's even worse. So you're saying that your colleagues on your documentary only managed to get a bottle of wine.
That's the only thing that showed up, and they spent a ludicrous amount of money on expedited shipping. Yeah. I mean, it was for them, it was such a disappointing experience. And I'm like, but and this is a professional project. Like it was for work. But I thought, I said to them, imagine being a fan and you want to experience this and you receive the email, sorry, the item you ordered that we've already charged you for is not on its way to you. First impressions matter when it comes to a business. There is no way that this is sustainable, in my personal opinion. You cannot continue to disappoint people. You cannot continue to disappoint your audience. They're going to give up. They're going to move on. They're going to go to the grocery store and grab the cheaper jar of preserves.
Of course they are. Of course, like I always said, you know, novelty value maybe first time round, but going forward, why are people going to spend astronomical amounts of money on a jar of jam or pretend jam, you know, cookie dough mix? You know, jar of jam. What is it? Is that $14 or the cookie dough is $14?
$21 for honey.
$21.
We're in a recession, girl, or we're heading there.
Yeah. So it's mundane domestic products at astronomical prices that you've got to wait 3 weeks for if you're lucky, that you can all buy in your grocery store.
Or forever, or you'll never get it. Or you'll never get it. Exactly. She says she doesn't have it.
Yeah, as ever, I predict has a very short future. It won't go on forever, that's for damn sure. Let's talk about this interesting story about Sentebale that emerged at the weekend. You remember at the height of the explosion, the volcanic row that erupted between Harry and his sort of white privileged friends, and of course Sophie Chandorka, wasn't it, the doctor who runs the organisation. She was very worried about the kind of fundraising method that Harry liked. Harry liked to raise funds for Sentebale, a charity for kids in Africa, the victims of parents who've had AIDS and HIV, good charity and all that. He liked to raise money for it by getting together with his multi-millionaire friends in champagne events in Florida and playing a game of polo for very rich people. And Sophie Chandorka found that uncomfortable, thought it was a kind of sign of a sort of white saviourish kind of operation. She was uncomfortable with that. Sentebale have now, we learned this weekend, officially ceased any more polo fundraising events. Harry won't like that, will he?
If he's a logical person, he'll accept it, because while I agree with Dr. Sophie, I also understand that from a financial position, it was a complete waste of resources, similar to their London offices. If you look at the amount of money they're saving now that they've shut down their London offices, it's unreal. How much the charity is saving by shutting down their London offices. And, you know, she's just saying, hey, we need to keep things centralized. Let's take care of our own. Why are we spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to fly to America so Prince Harry can film a Netflix show while he plays a polo match that's, you know, supposed to support us? We'd rather get Prince Harry on a plane to come visit us and to talk through what exactly he's doing here. So I think it was just a cost decision. I think she makes a lot of great points about this white saviorism, but I think at the end of the day, there is a lot of debate about how valuable those events truly were. Okay, you get your picture on the front of a major newspaper, but is the person reading it or seeing it on the other end going to cut Sentebale a check? The likelihood was no. They weren't there was no call to action by looking at Prince Harry on a horse. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I agree with Sophie Chandorka. Look, I don't know how much money those events raised, but there was this feeling it was more for Harry and his mega rich mates and his chums than it was really for Sentebale, all getting together, drinking champagne, riding horses. and playing polo. Very cruel sport, by the way. More for them than it was for Sentebale, and I think the Sentebale charity will generally feel a lot more easy now that that won't happen anymore. But let's talk about, just before you go, Kinsey, always a pleasure to talk to you, of course. You alluded to this at the beginning of our chat. The gruesome twosome, Harry and Meghan, are off to New York soon to be awarded Humanitarians of the Year award. This is Project Healthy Minds.
Isn't it just like that? But seriously, I want you to just think about the contrast between the last conversation you just had with me and what's coming out of your mouth right now. Harry had a blow up with Sentebale. They accused him of bullying. They accused Meghan of bullying. And everybody that comes in and says, okay, well, the charity, whatever, investigated it and said that they said they cannot investigate individual claims of bullying. So I don't write that off as Harry and Meghan did not bully Dr. Sophie Shandaka, because the Charity Commission specifically said, we do not investigate individual claims, okay? Humanitarian of the Year, when all we've heard about this year is fights with Sentebale exploding into terminations and the African Parks charity scandals.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm curious to know how these two people are saving the world.
It's supposed to be on Thursday, right? So it's only in 3 days' time. They're going to be at the Spring Studios in New York. They will receive the award, Humanitarians of the Year, for their exceptional global efforts in building a safer, more equitable digital world for families and youth, and their meaningful contributions to advancing mental well-being worldwide. What on earth is that all about? What have they actually done to deserve this award?
They shook hands with the right people. Their publicist called around and found someone willing to say yes. I mean, this is all just a PR strategy. They're trying to improve their image. And seriously, step back and ask yourself, how often do you see real working members of the royal family collecting trophies? They don't collect trophies. They distribute them. They use their platform to elevate people that are actually doing something in the world. Meanwhile, Harry's hopping around on polo horses, Vanity Project. Meghan Markle's doing her best Zoolander impression, Vanity Project. It's all, I've said this before to you, it's all theater. And I'm just exhausted. Like, when is somebody going to put these two in their place and say, you know, why don't you actually do something to contribute to society versus chasing a positive headline versus fixating on your own press? Because that's all this is about. Meghan and Harry wanting positive press. Like, actually do something that generates that organically.
Yeah, so they go on Thursday, and looks like they'll be together to receive this award at the Project Healthy Minds 4th Annual World Mental Health Day Festival. They'll actually be together receiving their Vanity Project Award on Friday. So much still to come. But it is a bit, it's something quite, I mean, it's sort of sickening about it, isn't it? Because it reminds me to when Harry got a Legends of Aviation Award from John Travolta. You know, and this is a guy who couldn't even pass his helicopter pilot's test. And yet he was awarded a Legend of Aviation Award. So these two are very happy constantly to accept these awards they just don't really deserve. It's strange, isn't it?
Well, I mean, Meghan, one of the things that they point out is Harry and Meghan's campaign to protect children online. That's why they're getting handed this award on Thursday.
What have they done? We remember that launch.
What I want to say is, I mean, they're working with this parent network that I actually think existed prior to them getting involved. But what I will say is, Meghan showing up at a Balenciaga show where Balenciaga was recently accused of, within the last 2 years, accused of predatory ads involving children holding teddy bears dressed in BDSM wear. Meghan, you need to stay away from the predators if you're going to be accepting. Actually, Balenciaga did something that Harry and Meghan have never done. They apologized. So at least the Balenciaga apologized. But if you're trying to paint yourself as a savior, which you are when you're draped in white, ready to collect an award at a moment's notice, then you've got to stay away from bad PR or from anybody that's got bad press. You are who you associate with. I can't believe she went to that Balenciaga show. You would never see Catherine, the Princess of Wales, associating with them, specifically because of the harmful imagery that Balenciaga published that included inappropriate images surrounding in the context of minors.
Yeah, she didn't really think it through. I've got one last thought. I'm looking at the outfit again. I've had one last thought. You know what I sent to you. I better not repeat what I said to you over the weekend about it. But here's a sort of clean version of what it looks like to me. It looks like she's woken up in the morning in bed, and she's stuck in the sheet, and she can't get out. So she shoves her head through the sheet and then goes off to the fashion show. That's what it looks like.
I think that it's the cosplay she wears when somebody visits Prince Harry late at night and he thinks his mother's in the room. I don't know if Elizabeth Arden cream's involved. I don't know. But that's what I imagine.
Well, Kinsey, on that bombshell, thank you so much for another brilliant feature, and we'll talk again on Thursday. That is the amazing Kinsey Schofield, host of Kinsey Schofield Unfiltered. Meghan in Paris. What a show. Nearly said something else then. Right, let's go to break. When we come back, we're going to take your calls. I'll read your WhatsApp voice notes and some of your messages. So stick around, folks. A lot still to come.
What sort of country are we? A first world country in the 21st century, the country that defeated Nazism, telling Jews, would you mind staying at home and not congregating because we can't protect you? As if that is remotely acceptable. No, the people who need to be dealt with are the people who mean that Jews need to be protected. The Jews and Israel and the Middle East are standing at the front line of the battle for Western civilization. And the sooner we get that, the sooner we will deal with it. But deal with it we must.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. A lot of love for Darren Grimes, my excellent guest at 8 o'clock, the Deputy Leader of Durham County Council, Reform UK Councillor, of course, former well, he still is a political commentator, but here's one. Darren is quite simply a truth-spouting superstar. This is an interesting one. Grimey's right, I'm on ground zero. I live next door to the Thistle Barbican Hotel. That's where the biggest number of migrant asylum seeker criminals reside, or alleged criminals. The biggest number of criminal charges against migrants are at the Thistle Barbican Hotel in central London. And here's a good one from Steve. Steve Chandler says, to give a perspective of what bad taste the Liverpool University event tomorrow is, Liverpool University is having from 10 a.m. until 4 p.m. the Palestine Bake event, a celebration of Palestinian cuisine. And on the poster it's got, it's time for dessert, October the 7th. Steve points out, he says, to give a perspective of what bad taste the Liverpool University event tomorrow is, it's the equivalent of a rival football team celebrating the Hillsborough disaster. Would Liverpool City Council allow that? It's the same. I think he's right. I think he's right. Look at that. That's disgusting. Palestine bake sale, time for dessert, pictures of puddings and things. Tomorrow, October the 7th. Come on. Come on. Where is these people's decency? Where is their decency? 03444 991,000. Let's go straight to the phones. Let's talk to Philippa in Poole in Dorset. Hello, Philippa.
Good evening, Kevin. How are you?
I'm very well. You want to talk about the Tower Hamlets Council looking set to vote the pink ladies into the realms of the far right? Absolutely outrageous, don't you think?
Yeah, I think it's absolutely appalling, and to be women labelled far right when all you're concerned about is your country's culture, your country's heritage, illegal immigration being stopped, your children being safe on the streets, your daughters not being sexually assaulted. When you're women who are concerned about those issues, the cost of living crisis and other political things, that does not make you far right at all. And whenever they talk about the pink ladies, I always think of the women in the pink jackets in Greece. I don't know why, but it makes me think of that. But I would prefer to be called a Farage filly if I'm going to be labelled far right, because
well, that's not far right either, is it? You see, the thing is that people.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. It's everyone, Philippa. It goes like this. With the people, these Labour councillors in Tower Hamlets, these type of people, they think that anyone who's right of centre, you know, you can be fairly centrist, but you can be, shall we say, a Tory or something like that with reasonable or with very moderate centrist views, but you're a Tory or you're a Reform member. As far as these people are concerned, that makes you far right. That makes you a fascist. That makes you a Nazi. That's the way they deal with political debate. It's pathetic.
Well, I'm sorry, but those councillors need to go back to school and they need to be taught proper history and what proper Nazism is and what proper fascism is, because people caring about their culture and their heritage and caring about children and caring about this country does not make any pink ladies far right at all.
But also, Philippa, they're attacking. They're also saying that the Raising the Colours campaign, the bid to re-establish the Union Jack and the St George's flags as flags of pride. They're saying that these people are far right as well. They're not, are they? They're just patriots who like their flag.
We're the only We're the only country in the world where our flag is supposedly seen as far right. It's got nothing to do with it. The only reason is what they're trying to do is they're trying to label everybody as far right by going back to the late 70s and early 80s where you had the National Front, you know, marching and all that kind of thing. We are nothing like that. Nothing like that at all. We're proud of our country, proud of our flag, proud of our heritage, and proud of, you know, everybody in this country doing their bit and doing their best to keep our heritage alive, and that's all it's about. And the safety of our kids, the safety of our families, and for all people want in this day and age is to have a decent standard of living, to not be worried about where the next where they're going to be able to pay for their next heating bill or their next lot of food shopping or whatever it might be. We just all want a happy, safe and a normal life.
Perfectly well said, Philippa. Well said. I think it's just outrageous that these ladies, the pink ladies, are worried about their kids. They're worried about their daughters, especially. They're worried about safety on the streets in their own communities, particularly the ladies of Epping, who were exactly right. There was an asylum seeker in the Bell Hotel who turned out to be a sexual assaulter. Is now gone to jail for assaulting a 14-year-old woman and another woman who tried to help her. They were right. They were not far right. They were right. They were correct. It's totally wrong to brand them as far right. It's just ridiculous. And you are right in what you say, Philippa. Excellent call. Thank you very much. Philippa from Paul in Dorset there. Let's quickly listen, shall we, to a WhatsApp voice note. Here's Hev on Keir Starmer.
What the hell is going on? It's going from bad to worse. I mean, we're imploding. Why the hell can't Starmer do what Sunak did? You know it's all going wrong and just throw in the towel. Throw in the towel and leave this mess for somebody else to deal with. Call a general election. It might actually help because he's well out of his depth and it seems that all his party are too. You cannot just go around making the rules up as you go along just to try and please everybody. It doesn't work, and he's an absolute numpty.
Well, I agree with that, Hev, but I'm afraid that Keir Starmer calling a general election would be like a turkey voting for Christmas. He's unlikely to do it. I think our best chance is, because, you know, he loves being the Prime Minister. He's desperate to be the Prime Minister. It's the only thing he believes in at all. I think our best chance, and it's not exactly a delicious prospect, is this, that their economic incompetence will plunge this country into a debt abyss, and that by 2027 the chances are we'll need to go to the International Monetary Fund and ask for money, and at that point I don't think they'll have any choice but to say the game's up, we've let the nation down. But until then, I'm afraid, Hev, we're stuck with them, but I do sympathise with what you're saying. Right, I've got the big guns after the break, so Tarquin, Georgina and Kevin in Leicester, stay where you are. We're coming to you after these messages.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Paul from Sheffield sent me a message. Don't be so quick to judge Zach's mystical prowess. That's Zach Polanski, otherwise known as David Paulden, the snake oil salesman leader of the Green Party, who used to con women into believing that he could enlarge their breasts through the power of hypnotism. He says, don't be so quick to judge Zach's mystical prowess. I can see he's growing into a massive something or other by the hour. That's Paul in Sheffield. Thank you, Paul. I can't quite read your whole message out, but I think people can make that out. Let's go to the phones. Let's talk to Kevin in Leicester. Kevin, you want to talk about Gary Neville. What would you like to say?
Hi, mate. I think he said what he said because I think he believes those flags are put up in a racist way.
Yeah, well, he might believe that, but he's wrong, isn't he?
Well, of course he's wrong. I mean, but it's because he said the white man, and it's not about that. It's people. It's a protest more than anything. Well, the problem is, he's in a setting, or he's a multimillionaire. I'm sure him and all the people close to him have got plenty of money. They don't need to. They don't experience what people in my family and friends have. I know girls, one of them a family member, won't go to the shop at night and buy a pint of milk because there's a migrant hotel around the corner and they loiter.
Yeah.
Now, this is what he and the left will say. I'll just make this point because I know you're going to be busy.
Yeah. Go
on. They will say, well, you retire and everyone with the same bush. They could all be good people. And the left are right. They could be. They could all be good people. But because you don't know that, and the statistics are reasonably high in comparison to British people, they still can't go out and buy that pint.
Yeah, but we know one thing, Kevin. We know that these asylum seekers are not. Well, this is a rule of humanity. Take any group of people, of human beings, and some of them will not be good. Some of them will be very bad, and that's what we're finding out about our asylum seekers. And you're right, the migrant crisis for your relatives you were talking about there, and for people around the country, is very real. It's next door to them. It's in their town. And these are not people who live behind the massive gilded gates of multi-million-pound mansions. These are people who live next door to these hotels, who have to see these migrants milling around on the streets. So for millions of people, it's very real, and Gary Neville is cut off from that reality and comes across as a champagne socialist. And where he gets it from, that the only people who are interested in our national flag, the Union Jack and the St George's flag, are white middle-class males, angry white middle-class males. I don't know, but that sounds very racist to me, and I think we've got a problem there with Gary Neville. Kevin, very good call. I take your point. Well done. Kevin in Leicester there. I should say that in about 15 minutes now, our new show, live from Washington in America, Harry Cole Saves the West. That will be on at 10 o'clock, and then at 11 o'clock it's Petri Hoskin. She'll be taking you through into the small hours until 1 a.m. Before we get to any of that, got two big guns lined up. We're going to talk to, first of all, the great Tarquin of London. Hello, Tarquin.
Brilliant show again, sir. Can't believe to get Darren Grimes, and what a brilliant guy, isn't he amazing?
He is. He talks a lot of sense, and it was good to get him on because I think the Green Party, we talk, as I was saying in the feature when I was talking to Darren, old Keir Starmer and his Labour gang, it's their new cliche, apart from racists. They like to call Nigel Farage and Reform snake oil salesmen. Well, Zach Polanski is a man who used to con women that he could enlarge their breasts through the power of hypnotism. Now, that strikes me as snake oil's salesmanship, doesn't it, you?
It rather does. And what concerns me particularly about that whole snake oil, and I think he couldn't even get the idiom right, Kevin. I think he actually said in his speech at the Labour Party propaganda Nuremberg rally, he went, snake oil merchant. He couldn't even get the idiom right.
Yeah.
So stupid. Do you remember?
Yes, he did, yeah. That's typical. Well, you know what? You are talking about the people who called the person who called the Israeli hostages sausages, so you shouldn't be too surprised, you know.
Yes, smuggling guns gangs. He's just all over the place.
Smuggling guns gangs, yes.
Yes, as Mike Graham says every day. It's brilliant. Now, what I was on a serious point, though, about this, Kevin, I know I think you've mentioned it many times, but I want to reiterate it because of what's come up today, with, as you quite rightly said, about Rayner and a BMW situation. Now, how is it? I mean, this is rhetorical, but everyone gets this, and you do better than anyone else. How is it that two members of Parliament, irrespective of where they are in the pecking order right now, one gets a BMW and probably heightened security detail, and another gets his security detail reduced by 75% by some nebulous office of the parliamentary government? Where's the accountability and the oversight of that?
And also, Tarquin, you know, we weren't born yesterday. Don't tell me that because Angela Rayner requires security, I'll accept that, just as Nigel Farage does, that security should entail the retention of her extremely expensive flash BMW ministerial car. Don't tell me that. I wasn't born yesterday. This is Westminster corruption. This is the Labour government looking after their own. There's no doubt about that in my mind. You know, these cabinet ministers, the thing they love the most is what all politicians aspire to, is the day they get their flashy limousine with a chauffeur to drive them around. Makes them feel that they love it. And when they come to the point where they either have to resign or they get sacked and they lose that car, it is a dagger through their hearts.
Isn't it?
And so I put the case, don't know this for sure, that Keir Starmer promised Ange that he'd soften the blow of her disgraceful departure by letting her keep the car. I'm just putting that out there. Tak, I gotta go. Always good to talk to you. It's Georgina time now. Hello, Georgina.
Hello.
Georgina, hi, it's Kevin. How are you?
I'm fine, darling. How are you?
I'm very, very well.
That's good. Well, I would just wish that all these political leaders would get off their soapboxes as with regard to Nigel Farage. You know, I mean, they only can verbally attack him or throw insults purely because politically they have nothing left that they can attack him with. So they attack the man himself. Nigel Farage is not bigoted. He's not fascist or Nazi or far right. Nigel Farage is a patriot and a lover of all things British, Kevin. Yeah. He's just right with both his policies for Britain and the British people. This is what terrifies the leaders of these other parties.
He's not a fascist, Georgina. Here's the point. You know Lewis Goodall from the newsagents, well-known left-wing broadcaster?
Yes.
He interviewed Zach Polanski, and credit to Lewis Goodall, hauled him over the coals.
Well,
he said, look, Zach, you said Nigel Farage is a fascist intent on turning Britain into a one-party state. He said, where the hell did you get that from? He said, where on earth did you get that from? And so Zach Polanski kind of stuttered a bit and said, well, he's on the way to doing that. That's what he wants to do. It's just ludicrous, juvenile political slurring. It's silly, it's immature, and not beholden, I would suggest, of a party leader.
These are playground tactics, Kevin.
Yes.
And all of these parties have conspired to try and defame Nigel, as none of them have the political gumption to take him on head-to-head. That's the truth. Yeah. And for Keir Starmer to cut Nigel's security by 75%, this has put Nigel in danger. If anything were to happen to this man, it would be on Keir Starmer's head and his parties. Yeah. They can't attack Nigel's policies, especially as most of these political parties have plagiarized realise Nigel's policies now anyway. So his policies must be good ones. But I can assure you that it's only going to be Nigel who follows through with these policies, and for all their plagiarism and vilification of Nigel, the other parties know it. The bottom line is that Nigel is loved by the people, and they put their trust in him, Kevin. And this in itself has cause for opposition leaders to slander, sully his name and vilify him.
Yeah.
In short, Kevin, it scares the life out of the opposition leaders, as they know that they're on a losing wicket, and they must now all realise that Nigel will be our next Prime Minister. So
he's certainly on course. He's certainly on course for that. And as I say, to go back to this security issue, I would just put the question, why is it Nigel Farage, I don't deny that a frontline, she's only a backbencher now, but so is Nigel Farage, a frontline controversial politician deserves, I don't deny that she deserves some security. I don't mind the government paying for that, us paying for that. I don't know why it entails retention of her ministerial BMW. It shouldn't. And while she retains her BMW, a big flash BMW, for security reasons, Nigel Farage gets his security cut by 75%. I think there are serious questions to be asked there. Georgina, excellent call as always. Thank you very much. Keep in touch. I know you will. Quick WhatsApp voice note. Here's Kev, good name, on Zach Polanski.
Evening, Kev. It looks like this David Polden character is actually a better hypnotist than we give him credit for. He appears to have hypnotised us into calling him Zach Polanski, or maybe he's hypnotised himself into calling himself something different. Either way, it's an absolute farce.
It is. I mean, it makes him come across as a fraud. Why would you change your name? He says there was a David in his family who was a bit dodgy and he didn't want to be named after him, and that Polanski apparently was the name of his grandfather who fled the Nazis from Germany. Okay, yeah, but why? Still doesn't mean why would you change your name to, if there's a David in your family you don't like, okay, if you must change your name to Zach. Why did you change your name from Polden to Zelensky? Zach Polanski sounds flash, doesn't it? It sounds punchy. That's what that's all about. Let's take a quick last call. Don't forget, it's Harry Cole Saves the West in a couple of minutes, after the 10 o'clock news. But first, let's quickly talk to Colin in Rugby. He wants to talk about Kemi Badenoch. What would you like to say, Colin?
Yeah, well, I'm pleased she's finally got to the
welcome to the party, Kemi. Better late than ever, as I keep saying. Yeah,
exactly. But one thing she did say is that people in her party that didn't embrace leaving the EHCR would not be able to stand as MPs.
Hey, look, let me just stop you there for a bit, Colin. Sorry to interrupt, but this is a woman who, when she took over the Tory party, made a big point of saying all these people who say leave the ECHR, it's just too simplistic. She was against leaving the ECHR. She apparently needed to commission a report, a study, to finally come round to what we always knew in the first place. So, you know, it's hypocrisy we're talking about here.
Yeah, well, I think in the end what will happen is, on this point, because we've got a load of wets in the Tory party, I think the party will actually split on this issue.
Yeah, that's
right
interesting, yeah. And they'll also split, they're also set to split almost certainly, Colin, on net stupid zero, because many of them, Theresa May, for example, they're just as bad as the Green Party or Labour on this green claptrap. You know, they are obsessed with it, and Kemi wants to cut back on it, so there's going to be a row there as well. Yeah, big trouble, divisive trouble ahead for the Tories. Totally agree with you, Colin. Good call. Thanks very much. Call me again. Colin in Rugby there. Now, that's pretty much it for tonight. Great show tonight, by the way. Thank you very much for your company. I hope you'll join me again tomorrow night at 7 p.m. for another top flight edition of the Political Asylum. As I say, it's been an amazing show. Now, coming up is our new show, Harry Cole Saves the West, live from Washington. You don't want to miss that, and I will see you all again tomorrow night at 7 p.m. I very much expect you to be there.
very decent, patriotic people will be absolutely sick to death at being sneered at by lovey, multi-millionaire celebrities. Gary Neville is just the latest in a long line of celebrities to come out and trash ordinary working people. Many people have found